a big concern up there in the bay along the river as those boats were secured, hoping to take on that water rise in the marina. Anna Maria, Florida, similar picture here. The Gulf of Mexico looking more like the eastern seaboard as those waves are churned up, white caps with ferocious winds, with those bands of Helene making their way in an
white caps. We're starting a special report. This is Hurricane Party Prime Time edition of the Z Show Cruise Fun. I mean, anything can happen. If you want to come in, the link is going to be sent at the link. If you want to come in and join the party, we got to do it all night long. We're going to try to do it all night long. So I sent the link. There's a link if you want to join in. If you want to, I want to talk to people in Florida because, well, I want to talk to people on the East Coast because we got a lot of things to talk about. You know, I like to talk to things that concern us as travelers. That's right. Here we go. We're going to start the show right after this word. Good evening, contact creator. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Welcome to the show. It is Thursday. It is the last Thursday of September of 2024. And welcome to the show. Welcome to the Hurricane Party Prime Time. I like saying that. The Hurricane Prime Time. So we got a lot of things to talk about. We got a lot of live coverage we're going to do. We're going to try to do the Weather Channel live coverage. We're going to try to do the Fox Weather Channel. So we got a lot of things to do. But I got to do this. I'm going to send out some invites. Y'all not doing anything right now, so come on. Let's have some fun. But I also cooking, so yes, I am cooking the filet leftovers. And you know what? We might be eating. You know why? Because I can. So we'll go ahead and do this. Invite guests. The link is up. Guys, don't be afraid. What is prime time? Prime time, the following live will be PG-18. And yes, we're going to talk about some stuff. Hold on. For this minute, okay, we got, hold on. Hold on. Okay, I gotta put that up. All right, so we got that going on. What we're gonna do is gonna play some. The hurricanes get ready to come in a matter of hours. We gotta do it at Category 4. Winds are 130 miles an hour. I won't be surprised if this will be Cat 5.
To pick, the safest spot to be What's the feeling like as sun begins to set?
Well, there's a lot of folks on edge, and one of those is the mayor of Perry. This is Ward Kettering, who has been through literally hell for the past 13 months. You had Idalia, then you had Debbie in August, and now we've got this Cat 4 major hurricane, which will probably go right over Perry.
Yes, it's headed this way right now. We were, I mean, the eyes been moving around quite a bit, but it looks like right now it's headed toward the Osceola River, which is the county line between Jefferson and Taylor.
And you've got the public works folks in here overnight. We're still out at the airport where we talked to the Dow folks earlier, and you've got a generator here. So they're out here. They're going to spend the night and hit the ground running first thing in the morning because it's obvious it's going to be as bad or worse than Idalia based on the wind speed.
Yeah, definitely. Also, during Idalia, we had so many trees come down. I mean, it was the biggest problem we had at first was there were so many trees down. It was hard to move around, and the power lines were entangled with them. So they had to get all that taken apart, get that cleaned up, and they were able to build the power grid back. And we still have a lot of trees that are dead or half fallen or leaning that still haven't come down yet. And this storm's going to take those down this time.
Well, Idalia, the power was out for 7 to 9 days, I was told.
Yes.
Not as bad in Debbie.
Right, it wasn't near as bad as with Debbie because it wasn't a powerful storm as Idalia, and definitely not as powerful as the one we have coming, Helene.
Right.
But like I said, the biggest concern we have is going to be the rest of the trees coming down.
And getting
Of course, people say,
Mudflies in the
Right.
house, they
Well, the
can
whole
come
county
in.
is under a mandatory evacuation. I doubt that all 23,000 people left. There are probably a fair amount of people still in Perry.
some decided to stay.
Yeah,
I mean, they were asked to leave. I mean, you can't, of course, actually keep forcing people to leave.
right.
We asked all they could. I mean, some of us had to stay. I mean, the public works folks are here. They have to hit the ground running in the morning. We had our utility trucks, so they're going to start populating the airport facility. We have quite a large facility here, about 960 acres.
And you got a bunch of generators on the tarmac out there. Plus, we've got these gentlemen that just showed up on the tarmac out there. Plus, we've got these gentlemen that just showed up. Well, thank you, Mayor. Let's bring these guys in. You just drove in from Oklahoma. Your name is
William Ablett, Cody Pryor.
And now you're coming in to support the power crews. Exactly what will you be doing?
Well, we set up a camp from everything from housing, laundry, and we feed them. So we provided all the nutrition throughout the day, from breakfast to dinner, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Somewhere around 1,000 folks is what we're looking to take care of this time.
And how many states? Do you know what states you're coming from?
I have no idea. I know all of our folks are mainly from Missouri and Oklahoma.
And they're on the road now, or they're going to stop and wait for the storm to go by tonight, then come in tomorrow?
Yeah, they're holding out just outside, like maybe 2-3 hours out, and then we just figured we'd get ahead of it in case we needed to help cut the trees or something like that to get those guys in.
And you mentioned the fact that you're going to be cooking some meals out here.
Yeah, we cook some pretty good stuff. We take care of those linemen. They do a lot for the community, so we're here to support them.
And the food is also on the way, I suppose.
Everything will be here first thing in the morning. We'll set up a big base camp. We'll be one of probably 3 or 4 base camps set up out here. And yeah, just take care of those guys that take care of everybody else.
And that's a good thing because you can't, the power crews are the godsend. And what about the experience this year? Were you out with Debbie? Were you out with Idalia last year?
We were out with the last one that came through here.
Debbie.
And then we went through, we did one also in Texas.
Francine?
Francine, yeah.
Okay.
We took care of those folks there. Those are about half the size of the people we plan to take care of.
Oh, yeah, this is probably going to be staggering.
Right.
Gentlemen, we appreciate you coming out and take care of the power crews. As they said, the power crews, Jane, are holding up, and they're going to come in after the storm passes. And there's going to be a lot of power outages. It's a no-brainer because of all the trees down here and these winds gusting easily over 100 miles an hour.
Yeah, Mike, we're already up over 250,000 customers without power. Thank you for that report. Very important information there in Perry, Florida. We're going to check back in as we go throughout the night tonight. Here's a look at some of the conditions out in Tallahassee that residents have been facing as this storm moves in. I mean, we've already got the concern for flooding rains. Flood warnings have been up there in Apalachicola along the Panhandle for hours this afternoon as we are awaiting really the brunt of this storm. Fox Weather meteorologist Kiana Lewis standing by in Tallahassee. Where Kiana, we're now beginning to lose daylight, right? And this is one of my biggest concerns when you have a storm of this magnitude coming in overnight, downed trees, power is out. What is it? What's the feeling like, as we await this storm coming in a matter of hours?
Jane, most of today, it did feel like a waiting game. We were waiting to see when the conditions would start to pick up. And then just like that, it started raining very hard. We had winds that started coming through, at least the wind gusts peaking around 30, 35, nearly 40 miles per hour. We're feeling those impacts now. We'll have this gust of wind that moves through, and it's just a sure sign that a hurricane is on the way. One thing I did notice within the last, say, hour or so, the temperatures feel completely different. It is way more comfortable at this point in time. We're sitting in the 70s right now. I think when we started off today, we were in the upper 80s, and it felt like the low 90s. So that is another significant change that I've noticed. Another thing that we've been watching is how the rain has been coming down a little bit more heavier. So Helene is certainly knocking at our doorsteps here in Tallahassee proper. I'm sure at the coast, they're starting to really feel those impacts as we're expecting to see some of the higher surge there as the waves come crashing in and the rain comes pouring down. Later into tonight, we know we have that landfall that's likely going to happen sometime around 11 tonight and heading into that overnight time frame. So to your point, Jane, I think the concern is certainly there as we go into the late evenings. We lose that latter half of the sunlight that's already starting to get ready to set at this point in time, and we're just left in the dark. If you don't have your power, if you don't have your devices powered up, now's the time to try to get that last little bit of juice, because we're heading into the later evening hours. We're going to start running the risk of some of these big trees that we have surrounded by us here in Tallahassee falling on power lines, causing some of those power outages. I think at the last time I checked, we were in the 100,000s here for the state of Florida that had power outages at this point in time. So that number is only going to continue to rise from here on out. When we get these bigger winds that come in, as I mentioned, we're on that initial part of Helene at this point in time as it starts to work its way in. So you can see these heavier raindrops pouring in. We're feeling the amount of moisture that's pouring in with Helene at this point. And that is only going to continue to go downhill from here. So Helene certainly has made itself present across Tallahassee. And we've been talking about how it's been increased to a Category 4 storm at this point. In the event that it moves over Tallahassee proper, this will be the first time in a very long time, we're talking since the 1800s, that we've experienced a Category 4 storm to this intensity here in Tallahassee. So I think that has a lot of residents kind of shaken too. They're no stranger to hurricanes, don't get me wrong. But when we're talking about a Category 4 storm in Tallahassee, a lot of new residents are here. A lot of residents have been born and raised here. They haven't seen anything to that intensity.
Yeah.
Kiana, you're absolutely right. I mean, this is a storm of reference, I think, for years to come for so many people. Those power outages, by the way, I took a look, now up over 335,000 customers without power there in Florida, and the worst of it hasn't even made itself up into the panhandle. So charging up those phones, getting that last minute juice, so important as we go into these overnight hours. Fox Weather meteorologist Kiana Lewis, thank you for the report. We will be checking in very shortly. I'll look over into Tampa. Now this is Hillsborough Bay. It's already pushed over onto the roads into the community here. I mean, easily a foot of water that's been spreading its way through. In Tampa, we have our Fox Weather's Brandy Campbell standing by. Brandy, I see you standing in floodwaters there. What is this, Bayshore Boulevard that you're standing in?
So Bayshore, it's a very long road, the longest sidewalk actually in America, and most of it is actually flooded. So this wasn't flooded, I would say, about an hour or so ago. The water just slowly moving up pretty deep the further you go back. The police obviously do have this area blocked off. Now, to my right or your left on screen is the bay right there, Hillsborough Bay. It's getting dark outside, so it's kind of hard to see, but the waves out there, it's really choppy. They're white-capped, and obviously at times crashing over the wall that they have. People have been out here. We've seen people trying to swim. Unfortunately, I don't think I would want to swim. I put on some really tall rain boots because I don't want to get wet. I don't know what's in this at this point. If there's sewer involved on top of that as well. Now, it's not just the flooding here, but it's the wind impact. Most recently, we've been starting to get some really strong wind gusts, and we know we could get some up to 80 miles per hour. So that's something else to keep in mind if you are somehow still still trying to drive around the roads. We are still seeing drivers
80
out and
miles
about
an
here in Tampa.
Okay.
Mostly people just taking a look. But I mean, again, this kind of speaks for itself. The
Really?
flooding. This road, not a stranger to it, but residents here, they're telling me this is definitely more than they would see on a normal flood event or a high tide event. Again, this because of that very strong hurricane now at a Cat 4. James?
Brandy, I mean, this is an incredible storm, and we're waiting that wind shift there in Tampa. I mean,
Getting a real good gusts right now.
I can see it. That's for sure. I mean, the wind shift is the concern.
All right, here we go. We'll go ahead and take a break. They had some people in Tampa, Florida, knuckleheads. You know, that's my favorite word to call people that are AKA stupid. Knuckleheads in Tampa Bay. Get it in the streets and get it into the water. You don't know what stuff is in those waters. It could be sewage. It could be snakes. It could be alligators. And you just got these knuckleheads. You got these knuckleheads in the water during a hurricane. That's just plain old stupid. I'm sorry for that. Oh boy, yeah. So yeah, that is. We're gonna be here a couple of hours. I have nothing else to do. I gotta cook dinner, so I am cooking dinner. But Butterfly, thank you for guys. Don't forget if you want to come in. I sent some links out there. The link is out there. I know one Swami, he's on a cruise, right? So, but I sent some links out there, and we got one person on the left. So, yeah. So what I'm gonna do back, I'm gonna go ahead and put this back on. Oh, wait a minute. We got yes. I gotta stir something. I'll be right back.
This is a look here in Tampa from earlier today. This is before the bridges and the causeways were closed down, and now there's no passing as we go into the dark of night. Those bridges were shut down about an hour or two ago, and for good reason. When you look at the surge and the push of the water and the waves that have already started to lash the Tampa Bay, Hillsborough Bay. We just spoke with Brandy Campbell just a couple of minutes ago, where that water is ankle deep up to knee deep in some locations already along Bayshore Boulevard. So this is just going to be, a really worst case scenario when we look over the next couple of hours. With Helene pulling north of Tampa, we're going to see that shift in wind direction, and then that surge is going to push in as we approach high tide towards midnight. But there's a look at Tampa right now. Streetlights are still on. We have 335,000 customers in Florida without power right now. That number continues to climb. You look down over to the Keys, where they've been battered by the winds and the wave, these outer bands lashing the Keys over the last 24 hours. Helene, well removed from the Keys, but look at that energy, the span and the swath of this storm and the winds extending out to 310 miles. In Anna Maria, Florida, you can see, reduced visibility, not only with the dark of night, but just with the heavy rain and the sea spray because of these winds coming off the onshore wind that's going to continue to lash the coast. Naples, Florida, we've already seen flooding there earlier today, and that flooding is already peaking across parts of Fort Myers Beach in and around Southwest Florida. So it has just been a tough day to get by on the peninsula. The Panhandle, the Big Bend, truly, it's been relatively quiet. People hunkering down, getting those last minute preparations done. But now we're in the thick of things, and we're just hours away from landfall, and that's going to happen.
Hours away from landfall. So let me go ahead and Fox 35 in Orlando. Okay. All right, let's do a Fox 35. It's a local TV station in Orlando, Florida. Let's go see their coverage. Make sure there's no commercials.
The rare what's called Fujiwara effect. It's a little bit inside baseball, I know, but while we've got this longer format here, you can research it out.
All right.
It's actually really interesting online. Think about like two planets coming at each other. You might remember this phenomena from sci-fi movies and in Hollywood when you see planets colliding and the Earth ending and this, that, and the other. It's called the Fujiwara effect. When two objects are coming at each other, instead of colliding, they orbit each other. Then they get faster, and then they combine into one. And that's what's happening here. Here's the hurricane. This is another separate low and storm up in the atmosphere. And notice how they pinwheel each other, and then they become one. For this part of the world, that's actually quite rare. Normally you see that over on the other side of the world, in the Pacific Basin, and also in the Philippines area. Real quick, before we move forward, I wanted to give you a brief update on the rest of the tropics. There's Tropical Storm Isaac that will move away from the United States, and we do have to talk about two other areas while I have all of y'all's attention. I do think Joyce will form. Hurricane Center says a high chance here, and possibly Kirk now in the Caribbean towards next week. And we'll talk about things more in a few minutes.
All right, they were just talking about tropical storm level wind gusts in Daytona Beach, so we're going to start to see some of the impacts of Helene, and our live team coverage continues right now in Volusia County.
Fox 35's Hannah McKenzie is live tonight in Daytona Beach Shore. So, Hannah, we are hearing that beaches are planning to be open tomorrow.
Wow.
Yeah, I guess that is the case. But right now, red flags are flying. And if you can see us, you probably know why. The wind is pretty strong right now. Right now, I'm actually standing in what used to be the primary building of a home here on Wilbur by the Sea. I'm told in this entire stretch, about 12 homes were actually destroyed during Hurricanes Ian and Nicole 2 years ago. And now with Hurricane Helene rolling through, people in the area are dealing with some PTSD.
The concern is always when the tide rises to abnormal heights, that if it breaches these walls, it'll pull a lot of the dirt away again, compromising the structures that are still standing, compromising the houses that are under construction now, and compromising the seawalls that have been built, plus removing more sand, which sand, this costs hundreds of thousands of dollars to replenish the sand, and that's not covered by insurance. That's an out-of-pocket expense. So that's the biggest fear.
So if you take a quick look behind me, the water right now, I'm told, looks eerily similar as to what it looked like when Hurricane Nicole came through. And if you take a quick walk with me right now, just showing you how many steps I'm taking here and how far we are from the water, I'm told when Nicole came through and wiped this area out, that storm surge came to about right here in the sands. That just shows you the amount of flooding this area took in. The folks I spoke with today are hopeful that's not going to happen again. They don't think it's going to happen again, but going through something like that voice in the back of your head always just kind of says, what if? It's a scary thought to have. Reporting live in Wilbur by the Sea, Hannah McKenzie, Fox 35 News.
Thanks, Hannah. Also, check out this video here from South Florida. Hurricane Helene has caused quite a bit of flooding in Fort Myers. Some streets began flooding this morning, but the good news with all this is the governor spoke about, I guess maybe about an hour ago now, and they said they already seen crews in behind the storm because it's already passed Fort Myers, and they're not seeing that much damage at all. There's some high water, obviously. But the good news here is they're not seeing too much damage because they sent power crews in there and they don't have much to repair right now.
That's great news after Ian, and now it's like kind of right by Tampa that's getting the most of it, and then it's going to move north into Georgia tonight.
Yeah, and that's where we're going to head up that way right now because after Helene is done with Florida,
we got 3 people in the house.
Georgia. Still going to be packing a serious punch. Probably still going to be a hurricane when it gets there.
So let's check in with Fox 35's Caroline Elliott.
Okay.
She is live in Valdosta, Georgia tonight. Caroline, set the scene.
All right.
What are you seeing
Hold
here
on.
tonight?
Give me a second.
And John Moran, even though we're still several hours away from landfall, as we get closer, there's a lot of people here with a lot of nerves and a lot of anxiety as we do get closer to landfall. You know, right now, this really is the calm.
Okay, so let me give you a quick update. For those of you who are here, the 3 people are here. The 2 people that are on the background area. Thank you for coming in. This is a special edition of the Zayshell Cruise Fund. It is called Hurricane Party Prime Time. So let me give you the latest update of this hurricane. Cat 4, 130 miles an hour. It's going to hit land in the panhandle of Florida, near the capital city. This is going to be a worst event. They haven't had this in a long time, so hopefully people had common sense. People will have common sense to leave the area. They should have left. They could go now and they get rained on and go to Miami. Miami is clear. Tampa Bay is almost clear. They get the rain bands. So in the morning, that airport will be back open. The main focus is the capital city of Florida and Atlanta, Georgia. ATL is going to get some rain. It's going to get some hurricane force winds. So if you're in the downtown metro area, Atlanta, Georgia, be prepared for some power outage. This is a good time to get some generators, get some gas. Make sure you have plenty of batteries. Make sure all your phones are charged up. Your tablets for your children. I don't like children, but anyway, we'll go back here because I gotta serve up some food. So we'll go ahead and put this right here. All right, hold on.
To be honest with you, that we have seen. Only have seen a couple of people walking on the streets, just kind of ambulating, quite frankly, but I've only seen 2 of them in the hours that we have been here. And so I mentioned that this county, Taylor County, is under a mandatory evacuation, and I just want to point out something as we'll turn right here and head closer toward downtown Perry, that the Sheriff's Office and the Division of Emergency Management put out as a foolish man just sped right past us, saying that if you or someone you know chose not to evacuate this area, please write your name, birthday, and important information on your arm or on your leg in a permanent marker so that officials know who you are and that they can make notifications to any family members. So that's how dire it is here, and it is going to be here later tonight. So we were here last year for Hurricane Idalia, and we have driven by some areas that still have damage that we know we saw firsthand last year. This area also had Debbie at the beginning of August, and now they are going to be grappling with Helene. John and Luann will send it back to you. We'll check back in here in the Thunder truck.
All right, thanks a lot, man. You know, the good news here, Luann, is they were driving around and you could see there's nobody out other than a couple of cars.
Yeah.
So at least people have heeded the warnings and are at least staying home or they've gotten out. That's the good part of this one.
Absolutely. Well, here's another live look at I-275 in Tampa. This bridge is closed right now because of the storm. You can see that the waves are really whipping up onto the bridge, and that is not where you want to be. Yeah. We will continue our coverage of Hurricane Helene right after this.
All right, hold on. All right, had to go to a commercial break. Let's see here. Dun, 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 dun. See if we can get any people that are out in the storm. Make sure. Okay, let's see.
Hey, thank you, MK. Thank you.
All right, let's see here.
Hey, Ryan, do you have a copy? Sorry, I was up the car.
Yeah, Chris, we was just looking for a little update whenever you get a chance.
Yes. Okay. I'm checking to see if I can get some local people.
Hey, Ryan, yeah, we're still here in Tallahassee. We're right in the smack dab middle of downtown Tallahassee. We're actually right here beside of Will Nunley with Weather Nation. We're looking off in the distance, and we can see the lightning in the eye wall as the hurricane approaches downtown Tallahassee. And I don't think I'm going to move. I've seen a lot of people transitioning over to Perry, and I don't blame them, but I just don't really want to travel down Highway 98, especially at night with all the trees. So we're going to stay right here for a little bit. I mean, we can maneuver anywhere we want to go right now, but I do think we're going to stay set here for just a little bit longer. Probably, if I think this is a pretty good spot, it's a pretty safe spot, especially with being in downtown Tallahassee. So we're probably going to hang out here for a while. Easy way in, easy way out, and we're pretty much protected 360 here. So probably going to hang out here for a while. Have the stream up. So we're looking down towards the south side of Tallahassee now. So like the stream is aimed, we're aiming towards the storm right now. So lightning is trying to pick up, and we can see that visually. So it is still strengthening, and we're expecting everything to go downhill from now until like 9 o'clock, and it's only going to get worse. Always expecting the worst, but we're prepared. We're always prepared for the worst here. We've got all of our snacks and drinks, water, stuff like that. Got enough gas to last us if we was to get stuck here or whatever. Like I said, cell towers are already trying to go down here. So we've had trouble out of AT&T already. But yeah, that's my update from here. We will be here for a while. Holler back out. Let me know. Anything changes, we'll be right here. We'll let you know something. So.
All right, so that was an update from Chris. I do want to take us over to the newest tornado warning that was just issued.
All right.
This is in Florida, south of Arcadia. This includes areas just to the east of Punta Gorda and south and west of Arcadia. This includes Fort Ogden. This is Charlotte and DeSoto counties in Florida. Take shelter now. Pretty dangerous storm capable of producing a tornado. There's your velocity couplet. That's where the tornado could be. And it's going to be moving up towards Ridge Harbor. Once again, take shelter immediately. Also, Riley, did you have something?
Yeah, Ryan. So we saw that Hurricane Hunter aircraft looping the eye a while back. They had mechanical issues entering the eye, and they actually had a major issue with the plane, and were not able to get out of the eye for a while. They did get those issues fixed, and they have made it out of the eye.
A new tornado warning has been
That
issued.
is why they were looping the eye so long, because they actually got trapped in it.
Wow.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Wow.
Thank you, Riley.
Thanks for that information.
Super huge shout out to the hurricane hunters and all
The
those
hurricane
people who are
hunters.
responsible for getting us that data. Obviously, it's
Yeah.
a dangerous thing, and this is just one of the
A new tornado warning has been issued.
And now we're just getting tornado warnings left and right. We just got two in the past 2 minutes, it feels like.
Mhm.
All of these are in the same little area here in Florida. The newest one includes Bowling Green and Washula, Florida. Also Zolfo Springs, just to the west there. We are looking at a strengthening storm with a rotating core or rotating base near Limestone and Bridges, moving up towards Oak Grove and Fort Greene. Take shelter now if you're in Hardy or DeSoto counties in Florida. Another new one is going to be over here to the south and east of Arcadia. This is near Sparkman. This is DeSoto and Charlotte County in Florida. Moving up towards Highway 70. This is going to pass the Hummingbirds Landing Airport. If you know where that is, south and east of Arcadia, and you know where Highway 70 is to the east of Arcadia, that's around where the tornado would go if it's actually on the ground. So take shelter. Couple different potential tornadoes going on right now, south and east of Tampa, north of Cape Coral in Florida.
Oh, okay. Oh, right. Yeah. It's the squall line on the back end, the northeast side of the storm, which you get tornado warnings when you get actually close to the last field. The shoreline winds.
Yeah, this is our
Hold on. Okay. The squall line, the lines that are coming in at the back end of the hurricane is coming in, the squall lines are coming in. That triggers the tornado warning. So those storms, those bands are very, very strong. So you're gonna get some tornadoes. Landfall should be in the next 2 or 3 hours, according to let's see here. Get a alert. So it's catastrophic. Oh shoot. Okay. This is serious. This storm is category 4. Damage catastrophic. I wonder what the 5 is. I'm just curious. Give me a second. Okay, now here's the thing. So we're in a Cat 4, and Cat 5 is 157 miles per hour or higher. But between number 4 and the 5, it's still catastrophic damage will occur. Yeah, so if it's a 4 and a 5, you're still gonna get some. A category 4 hurricane will destroy a home. I remember Hurricane Andrew when I was covering it back, when I was watching it back in the day, and that monster took out Homestead Air Force Base. My dad was stationed there years ago before we were stationed. Well, he used to go between Homestead and Patrick for work, and basically it was like a couple-hour drive on his car. And then he had a motorcycle at the time, so he usually on the weekends, if we had to go to work on the weekends, he'd go to Homestead. Now this is before Hurricane Andrew, so Hurricane Andrew was a bad boy. This is not going to be as strong as Andrew, but this is the first time that this hurricane is going to hit Titusville. Tallahassee, excuse me. But yeah. Okay, hold on. Let me double check. I still have some food cooking. So, hold on. Man, I wish they would put a channel on YouTube. I think they have it, but. Okay, hold on. We go back here. This guy has no commercials. I'm going to use him because he's doing the local reports. Hold on. All right. Okay, he has another guy there. He's on.
Caused $11 million in damage, and that's 1958 money, and that's equivalent to $119 million in today's money. So it did cause damage, but it was a Category 4 storm that impacted the continental U.S. on September 26th. About 70 years ago? That's a while ago.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Elijah. Fascinating stuff. And yeah, quite the coincidence there. We were talking yesterday about storms named Helene. We've actually had quite a few of those.
A new tornado watch has been issued.
And it's very possible that this will be the last one, as if it makes landfall as Category 4 and does catastrophic damage, as we expect it will. They will likely retire that name. So this will be the last time we have a Helene, more than likely. So Riley came through earlier and told us about the hurricane hunters and the problems that they were having. They got out of there, but they seemingly hit an extreme updraft in Helene's eye, causing mechanical issues. They have since exited the eye and diverted southwest. So that's even more interesting. The reason they had problems is because of the extreme intensity of the storm itself. So just another sign of how powerful Helene is, and that it's continuing to strengthen. Storm surge right now is quickly overtaking St. Pete Beach, Florida, ahead of the Hurricane Helene tonight. That's another place we need to be looking. I know the power's out, so we don't have a lot of cameras out there, but just double check for us. And then we also need to be looking at Interstate 75 north and east of Tampa as well. Just monitoring, not showing. For those of you who are just now tuning in, we've got a Category 4 hurricane on our hands with 130 mile per hour winds. We expect it to maintain that strength or strengthen on its approach to the coast. Also, we just got that tornado watch that was issued. I'll show you the graphic for that. several tornadoes likely. First of all, this goes until 6 a.m. Okay, we've got several tornadoes likely. This includes the vast majority of Florida. 13.5 million people are under this tornado watch tonight. So even far outside of the landfall area, we've got a pretty significant tornado threat that's going to impact a lot of Florida tonight. Go ahead, Andy.
Hey Ryan, on that topic, the storm I'm most closely watching is approaching Green Pond, South Carolina, currently not tornado warned, and due east of the Charleston radar here, approaching Highway 17. So that's around the Jacksonboro, Green Pond area there. It's the kind of the supercell in the middle of those three, or on the northeast side of those three that are right there. I think that could be tornado warned imminently as the rotation is tightened up on the latest scan, and it might have a couple of chances to do so with that inflow kind of being sucked into the storm. So I wouldn't be surprised with a tornado warning for Green Pond in Colleton County. And gosh, the county lines are everywhere here. So yeah, into Colleton County.
Okay, thank you very much, Andy. Meteorologist Andy Hill is keeping an eye on these storms in South Carolina as well as the ones in Florida. And we're probably on the verge of seeing another spurt of tornado warnings as a result of these supercells that have come onto land here all around Charleston, up into places like Walterboro. We've got to watch out for you guys in Yemassee as well. We're specifically watching most closely this storm right here, which is going to get close to Jacksonboro and the Highway 17 corridor just to the west of Jacksonboro. So that's what we're dealing with there. And we're continuing to see lots of these storms form over the Atlantic as well. These cells are going to continue to cause big time problems and pose a tornado threat as they come in towards Savannah over the next several hours. We are continuing to see more and more flash flood warnings be issued as well up and down Georgia and South Carolina and North Carolina. Those are going to continue to happen. We're not quite in the part of the storm that's going to lead to the greatest flooding just yet, especially in North Carolina. But we're getting closer to that being a reality. So we'll start checking on the water levels and stuff in that area as well to keep you updated on what's going on over there.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, it's 8 o'clock Eastern Coast, 7 o'clock Central Time. We're watching Category 4 hurricane get ready to hit the capital city of Florida. Landfall is expected in the next couple of hours. Welcome to the special edition of the Z Show Cruise Fun. I'm here. I'm going to be here towards landfall, and then I got locals. I got storm watchers.
Just turn on all of our different layers here that we need to monitor.
Yeah,
this thing's getting close, man.
Yeah.
Once again, it's going to happen very quickly.
Yeah.
The vast majority of the really strong winds are kind of locked into this part of the storm right here, but it's rapidly approaching the coast here near Horseshoe Beach. We've got a couple of probes, a couple of cameras in place there to help us keep an eye.
Okay, so we'll go ahead and do this. I'm going to go back to he's doing the local. All right, hold on. Let's see here. Let's do box weather. Gotta make sure there's no commercials. This is a crunch time, ladies and gentlemen. Now, I'm going to put this
around 11 p.m. Eastern time. Boy, it could be a little faster than that, right? With the speed of this system as it treks up in the Gulf of Mexico. Helene, an historic hurricane that is going to make landfall here tonight on the Big Bend, the Nature Coast. State of emergency across the entire state of Florida and up into Georgia. This is as serious as it gets, especially in a state that knows hurricanes, but a Cat 4, look, that is not common for landfall at all. Jane?
Oh, you're absolutely right, Robert. This is something that nobody has experienced before to the magnitude that we see Hurricane Helene right now, major Hurricane Helene. Fox Weather, Robert Ray, we're going to continue to check in with you there in Cross City. Be safe. I mean, we have the worst of this still to come for where you're standing. We have now hundreds of thousands of customers without power in Florida. Naples, Florida, you can see the orange glow of emergency officials standing by. Surge has pushed in to the west coast of Florida, and we're feeling some of the worst impacts right now in Pinellas County, where 93,000 customers are in the dark, and that number keeps climbing. We'll be tracking this storm 24/7. As a reminder, you can stream us free anytime at foxweather.tv. If you haven't already, download the Fox Weather app and get alerts and up-to-date information right there in the palm of your hand. Keep it here.
Let's do a commercial. Here we go.
Back back here with continuing coverage of Hurricane Helene, a Category 4 monstrous storm. We have our alert system on the board here. Several flash flood warnings and tornado warnings are up. This is the real impact of this storm, not just at the coast, but inland through North Florida, into Georgia, and even into the Carolinas. And we've watched the scope of this storm be so far-reaching. We have several flash flood warnings up right now, including parts of the panhandle of Florida, but then they stretch up through Atlanta and then into the mountains there of South Carolina and North Carolina. Phase 2 of Hurricane Helene is going to bring very dangerous, catastrophic flooding, near record flooding up through the Blue Ridge and the mountains. We're watching these storms closely. Here's our bands as they wrap in on shore, some of which producing our tornado warnings just outside of Fort Myers. These have been radar indicated. We're watching them closely, and you want to treat them seriously. That's going to be one thing that you have to be aware of. As long as you have power, make sure that you have ways to receive alerts. We're watching these flash flood warnings as this has been in place for hours for Panama City up into Alfred on the I-10 corridor, and look at these bands beginning to wrap their way in. Last 24 hours, we've seen anywhere from 5 to 8 inches of rain, near a bullseye of 12 inches, a foot of rain just there at the coast, and plenty more is still to come. And so freshwater flooding, it's the reason why we have that extreme level 4 out of 4 risk for flooding that stretches all the way up through this corridor into North Georgia, Atlanta, under flash flood warnings, and what is ultimately going to become one of the worst events, I think, up through parts of the Appalachians as we go through the next 24 hours. Because the thing is here, I'm going to bring in our Fox Weather hurricane specialist, Brian Norcross. Brian, it's a Category 4 in and of its own right. It makes landfall in the Big Bend. It'll be the first time that we've seen a storm of that strength make landfall in the Big Bend of Florida. But then you keep things going up into Georgia and the Carolinas. I mean, there's so many millions of people in the path of this.
Yeah, this is going to be a catastrophe up in the mountains, and we'll just see to what extent this all occurs in Georgia and in Tennessee, North Carolina, South Carolina. There is talk from the Greenville National Weather Service office in South Carolina that covers Asheville about this being the worst flood event going back more than 100 years. The big flood in Asheville was in 1916 from 2 hurricanes in just a couple weeks. And here we had this huge rain event on Wednesday and on Tuesday, I guess Tuesday, right, Jane? The pre-event was Tuesday, and then here we are on Thursday, and another one coming. So it's another 1-2 event for the mountains of North Carolina. All right, let's say interesting things that we're seeing on the satellite here. Take a look at the 130-mile-an-hour hurricane, 945 pressure. Indications from the hurricane hunters are that the pressure is continuing to come down. Any minute now we'll get the 8 o'clock advisory. This is actually just a position update, so at 7 o'clock. And the position, when we look at it, if you look at the line, you can see it's kind of been wiggling. Is it staying to the right side? The geometry here is a little complicated when we're looking from infrared, since it's dark outside. It's not like it is when we can actually see it. Cody, I can't move this forward. If you can make it go. We're working on it. Okay, so the point is that it seems to be leaning a little bit to the left side. Here we go. All right, so you can see where what the apparent eye is in the infrared satellite, and trying to make that jive with the hurricane hunters has been interesting here. We've been working on that. We'll see what the update is, like I said, any minute here from the hurricane hunters. Cody, help me out here. For whatever reason, I don't have control of the system. There we go. All right, so what we did is we put the cone on the satellite so you could see that if it continues straight on that line, it's going to go up and just a little bit to the east of Tallahassee. That's the official cone from the National Hurricane Center as of 5 o'clock Eastern time. Now we're seeing the eye on this right side of the cone. We're going to see if it jogs back. But as we talked about last hour, maybe this is some indication that this is going to favor the right side of the cone, which just because of the angles can make a big difference up here in the effects of Tallahassee and move Perry more in line with the worst winds. We'll see. I don't want to say this is what's going to happen. Just now we're looking close up. All this is imminent. This landfall up in here is going to happen in just a few hours now. There's a buoy right there that we get continuous measurements from. Here, let's take a look at that buoy just to the left of where the satellite is indicating the eye. Cody, we're going to have to. I tell you what, if you've been trying to look at a weather website tonight, you know that every computer in the world is slow because everybody is looking for everything. I think our computers are in that same category. So here's the information from the buoy. Look at this, Shane. This is really interesting. The pressure, which is the orange line, you can see it going down here into the 940s. And ignore this. This was when the data went out for just a moment. But the wind gusts here up to 101, the sustained winds up to about 65 in that buoy just to the left of the eye. So this is confirmation really of what the hurricane hunters have been indicating out there. All right, Jane, it's...
I think we just got the update.
Do we just get the update? All right, so let me go ahead and bring that up since...
942 millibars.
Yeah,
Winds at 4 at 130 miles per hour. So no big changes there, but we are watching it. It's
there we go. I have
an update.
I have it up there. So this is actually an advisory, 130 miles an hour, still the same forward speed, but 942 millibars. So continuing to lower in pressure. Like I said, I saw the report come in from the hurricane hunter that it was dropping even beyond what we had last hour. So
incredible.
They're going to be flying this continuously. And let's see if we should get in. We did. So what I was just talking about, look right here where that last point is there. Let me clear that. And look right there. And you see the point where the Hurricane Center puts the dot is a little bit to the left of where the infrared eye is. They can be out of sync. Okay? So we'll go with where they put the dot because that's from the hurricane.
We'll do that.
Okay.
Brian Norcross, our hurricane specialist. Keep it here. Fox Weather for continuous coverage of Helene. the damage and debris already thrown in from Hurricane Helene this here in Cape Coral, Florida. Powerful Hurricane Helene bearing down on the Big Bend here, just hours away from landfall and what's expected to be a monster storm for those in its path. Helene already bringing destructive winds, life-threatening storm surge to parts of Florida. We checked in with Ian Oliver in St. Pete Beach. Cars already submerged up to the hood. Welcome to Fox Weather. I'm Jane Menard. The danger stretches from the Keys up through Tampa and into the Big Bend. And then from there, after phase one, post landfall, we're watching the southeast for what is expected to be a dangerous and potentially catastrophic flood event over the next 24 and 48 hours. We're tracking it all for you with Fox Weather's continuous coverage of Helene all night long. We have our teams spread out across the southeast as Helene hits. Fox Weather is your Hurricane HQ. You can see Robert Ray standing there in the middle. He's standing by for us right now on the Big Bend in Cross City, Florida. That's just about 20 miles or so east of Steinhatchee, where the Big Bend, Robert, no stranger, oddly enough, over the last 2 years to seeing landfalls of storms. We had Debbie earlier this season. We had a Dahlia last year, but this is the first time that we are going to see a strengthening Category 4 hurricane in the Big Bend.
Yeah, and it's as dangerous as it gets. A Category 4 hurricane is catastrophic. It will cause mass power outages, which, by the way, in the state of Florida, we are approaching nearly 400,000 customers without power. We still have power here in Cross City, in the Big Bend, the Nature Coast, as these outer bands continue to come in. In fact, just in the past hour, we've really begun to have the rain and some of the gusty winds, and it will get progressively worse. It will deteriorate in the coming hours with an imminent landfall, likely around 11 p.m. Eastern time. A give or take with this forward motion of Hurricane Helene, about 25 miles per hour and sustained 130 miles per hour Category 4 force. This is as bad as it gets, no doubt. We've seen some of the impacts to the south with Ian Oliver, Brandy Campbell, and everyone else. And now we are really going to get it in this pocket in the coming hours. Mike Seidel is up in Perry, about 30 miles from where we're at, and that could potentially be the eastern eye wall. Nonetheless, this entire area will take it very, very hard, and then it will move up into Georgia. State of emergencies in both states, and we are about 20 miles as the crow flies from the Gulf of Mexico. Steinhatchee is the closest town that is going to take in potentially 10 to 20 feet of storm surge. That is basically unsurvivable. We had a position there on high ground. We're just not taking the risk. You just don't want to lose your vehicles and then obviously your own life. That would be an unmanageable scenario. And so we are here inland. We are going to be reporting throughout the night as this storm continues to come in. And now maybe you see, this is what we're talking about, the ebb and flow of the outer bands. Sometimes you get a wind gust and some heavy rain, and then it just slows down, and it's going to progressively get more intense as the hours come. And that is why this helmet and these glasses are here. It is dark, and you just don't know when those winds are going to kick up, and you got to be careful. Jane?
Yeah, I mean, Robert, from where you are, being inland is, of course, still a very dangerous place to be with the winds and the power outages. So hoping that you're staying safe. I know you and your team, you're experts. This is what you do, and you bring us these visuals, hoping that people have been heeding those warnings. I was doing some digging, about 20 mile per hour gusts where you are right now with those outer bands, but the core of this storm sits 80 miles to the west-southwest of Cedar Key. I know your position's just a bit north of that, but even just a wobble ever so slightly off to the east, off to the north, is going to bring bigger impacts to you.
Totally. And that's the thing. I mean, at this point, it can wobble, and we're monitoring, at Fox Weather headquarters in New York City, you and everyone else and all the great talented meteorologists and the brains, and then the National Hurricane Center as well. We are prepared for a wobble. We are hoping it doesn't occur, at least for our sake. But if it does, we're going to bring you those images. Fox Weather Beast illuminating me right now, and the team tucked inside vehicles right now so that we can bring you clean pictures of what will happen here in the coming hours protected with a building behind me. We're ready for the counter twist. Helene, oh man, be good on us, please, with all the millions of people in the state of Florida, this great peninsula. Jane.
Robert Ray, thank you so much for your report. We're going to keep checking back in. Be safe out there. All right, we get a look right now out in Tampa where power flashes and surges have been illuminating off in the distance. Power now out across Pinellas County, over 90,000 customers and counting as these numbers continue to climb across the state and then across the region. We're watching Georgia, South Carolina, up into the mountains for those power outages still to come as we go into the overnight hours. You can see here too, flooding has taken over the roads here. Bayshore Boulevard, where we have our Brandy Campbell standing by. She's been reporting from those floodwaters, along with our Ian Oliver on St. Pete Beach. We have full team coverage in the scope of this storm. Here's the big picture. We're focusing a lot, of course, on the coastal impacts and landfall. That's phase one of this. We are watching these storms up to the north that are going to continue to wrap up that pouring rain, that's threat for severe weather, all a possibility into the overnight hours. Want to bring in a hurricane specialist, a hurricane expert, Brian Norcross. Brian, we just had the 8 o'clock advisory come in, and we've been watching these wobbles ever so slightly off to the east. What's your take with this new information?
I think it's less a wobble than it is that when we look with the satellites that we look at night, the infrared satellites, where we're actually looking at the temperature of the clouds way up in the atmosphere, that this is a sign that the storm is slightly tilted. So that we're with the eye that we see at night from space here is not the eye or the center that we track down at the surface of the ocean. So it's the surface center that actually defines what the center of the hurricane is. So that's why you see the line there going to the north and the eye, apparent eye on the satellite a little to the right. Yes, it has been wobbling a little bit, but not as much as it looked like. 130 mile an hour winds is the latest estimate. Another Hurricane Hunter plane is on the way there. So we should have more data coming up here in the next hour or so. 942, the pressure continues to go down. So 942, now we're getting into real serious territory. I mean, Hurricane Sandy was giant and all it was 944. And I thought, wow, that's a mind-blowingly low pressure for that wind speed. So 940 or something like that would support higher winds than 130. So we'll see if this organizes. The fact that it's a little tilted may keep it from intensifying too much, and that energy might spread out into this huge hurricane. All right, I just want to show you this because I know folks are looking at home and thinking, oh, is this deviating somehow? See, these clouds here you see the kind of grayish white, are very, very high in the atmosphere. And so that's the top of the storm, and it's just the storm is tilted just very slightly. So those clouds are probably at 45 to 50,000 feet there. And the hurricane hunters are actually dropping instruments down to find out where the center is down there right at the surface. So anyway, it is on the same track. The question is exactly what's going to happen here, but it's a big storm. There's really no reason to think that, oh, this is good news for Tallahassee or bad news for anybody. This is bad news for everybody here in North Florida and, of course, along the coast. There's that radar, and we're still seeing lightning flashes out here in the eye. Sometimes lightning flashes indicate that there's still an intensification process going on, and the question is that eye going to shrink a little bit as it heads in this direction? And that would indicate strengthening, but we do see that it's not a closed eye wall, and that's, again, an indication that it might not have a pristine environment around it. So that tilt and the fact that we're not getting a closed eye wall with this kind of a low pressure might mean that. We'll see what happens here, see if it does close that off. It might be some dry air coming in here on the backside that is just eroding it just a little bit. Anything, of course, to help keep this down. But look at the scope of this, and I wanted to mention these outer bands. These outer bands, as you saw if you're watching Ian Oliver in St. Petersburg, under an outer band, these outer bands are where the tornadoes are, because the wind's turning with height dramatically. You see one up here around the Charleston area. And when we look at the radar, if you're going to look at it at home, there's the eye wall, and then you can count the bands. You can say 1, 2, 3, 4. It's always a kind of approximate 5, 6, something like that. And each band closer to the eye has stronger winds on average. Also to do with where the strongest storms are, of course. But that's how you know how gusty it's going to be. So this band coming in here, which looks like it's going to move up the coast toward Cedar Key, Steinhatchee, up toward Keaton Beach and so forth. That one is going to be gustier than the ones that have been there before. And of course, this is where the strongest winds are, right near the center. All right, so notice the rain all up in here, and we're very, very fearful for a flood catastrophe up there in the upstate of South Carolina into western North Carolina and the Blue Ridge Mountains and up there before this is over. And I wanted to just look at the Tampa situation right closely. There's this band may or may not get to Tampa. Looks like things are letting up there for a moment. They're in between bands. That strong band that was in earlier has moved inland there just a little bit. All right, here's the latest wind gust. St. Petersburg, look, up to 67, 64 at the PIE airport. That's St. Petersburg Clearwater International. 62 down here at Sarasota. The winds have finally switched now, so they're coming from the south. So that still is not the direction that drives the water into Tampa Bay and up against all those beaches there. But as we've already seen, the water is rising there dramatically, up to 4 feet now above normal high tide, flooding in Fort Myers Beach, heading for moderate flood at Naples. That's at Naples Pier there, right along the beaches. 4.8 above normal high tide, Clearwater Beach. Look at all these going up now, heading for 4 feet. And that's because the tide is coming in. That is not because the storm is pushing the water in, Jane. So we have both things going on, and unfortunately, both are going to happen at the same time, right? The tide is just plain old tide coming in, and then when those winds turn around later on this evening, then the water is going to get pushed in behind the tide, and nominally midnight-ish in Tampa Bay.
And that comes even after Helene is well off to the north.
Well off to the north, because the wind direction then comes directly into the bay.
Right. Gosh, it is still just incredible to see the scope of this storm. There's so many different impacts that we're covering here. 82 mile per hour gusts in downtown St. Pete.
St. Pete, so is that at the airport there?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, the Albert Whitten Airport, which is inside. So this is it. This is kind of where that tide gauge is there, more or less. It's on Tampa Bay. It's not on the beach side.
Right.
So it's on Tampa Bay, but on the other side of the peninsula where St. Petersburg is.
When we talk about those winds and the force of that, no surprise what Ian Oliver was showing us, how far that surge has already pushed its way in, and we're not even at the peak of what this could become when we look down the road in the next several hours.
Not to mention the power outages. By the way, inquiring minds want to know, why are power flashes aquamarine? It just turns out that nitrogen and oxygen in the air ionize and make that color.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you get a big arc in the power system, it ionizes the air.
Well, it is. It's an unsettling color to see.
It is.
Especially at night.
I remember seeing it in Miami many times in hurricanes. All the aquamarine flashes. It's kind of a nice color, but I mean, it's really sad.
It tells you that unfortunately hundreds of
Bad things are
thousands,
happening.
right, bad things are happening. Brian Norcross, thank you for your expertise as always. We're going to be here with you all night long on Fox Weather. Find out how to stream us, go to foxweather.tv. Of course, have your charged up phone set on your Fox Weather app. You're looking at Fort Myers, Florida. Emergency personnel closing down, I believe, this road. I haven't seen any passage. We've already seen flooding reports on Fort Myers Beach itself. So we've been covering these stories up and down the coastline. And unfortunately, we are going to continue to watch as a powerful Hurricane Helene barrels towards landfall in the dark of night. Keep it here on Fox Weather. We've got the latest information.
Yeah, that's a big power plant. Whoa. Are you seeing that? That was a massive power plant coming.
Speaking of the aquamarine that Ryan Norcross was just mentioning earlier, just about 30 minutes ago, we were talking with Ian Oliver there in St. Pete, where we've had 82-mile-per-hour wind gusts, power flashes, and the power is out. We are going to continue to follow this story very closely, bring you the latest live pictures of what everyone is experiencing there in St. Pete, but also to up and down the Florida coast and into Georgia and the Carolinas. Back here on Fox Weather, your Hurricane HQ. Let's take you out to Perry, Florida, where we find Fox Weather storm specialist Mike Seidel. Mike, we checked in with you, and you've talked a lot about how power crews and emergency personnel are hunkering down for this there in Perry. What's the latest now that the sun is set?
Well, they are staying out of town. They're going to come in the morning after the worst goes by, which may not be sunrise, because this thing is moving like it's late for a date, about 25 miles an hour north-northeast. And I just measured the distance from the edge of the eye to Perry, and that's about 75 miles. So we're thinking about 3 hours will be in the eye. That's the fault here in the eye of a major hurricane. Cat 4, Helene, there goes another gust. Airport is gusted down to 38 miles an hour, so things are ramping up very quickly. As you can see on the radar, we're starting to get those outer bands and waves of rainfall. Up until about 30 minutes ago, it had been very, very tranquil, gusts 15 to 20, and we haven't had that much rain. Now, east of here today and last night, places like Apalachicola, they're up over 8 inches of rain. They had a big feeder of rainfall, and that combined with this wind is going to lead to numerous trees being uprooted. The winds alone are going to knock trees and limbs down over the power lines, and we're expecting widespread power outages. Even though with Adalia and Debbie, a lot of trees did come down, there's still a lot of trees out here. This is a very heavily forested area, much like the case is going to be in Atlanta, even though the winds up there won't be strong. So, Jane, it is going downhill quickly. We'll be in the worst of it between now and about 11:30. Then we'll get in the eye. That's what it looks like to me. And if you've never experienced a major hurricane in an eye, stay with Fox, and we'll show it to you here. I've only been in one major hurricane, Jane, in the eye. That was Hurricane Floyd, September 16th, 1999. On the Causeway, Wrightsville, and Wilmington, North Carolina. So I'm looking forward to that, but I'm not looking forward to what's going to happen before that. We're talking about these wind gusts over 100 miles an hour and the risk of certainly massive power outages and even structural damage.
Mike, thanks for the report. I mean, we are awaiting now. To your point, we were just measuring it here in studio, how far away that eye wall is from the coast, expecting those conditions to really ramp up in about the next 2 hours. So we're going to continue to follow your picture. Be safe out there, Mike. Thanks for the report. Let's get now down the coast a bit as Helene is expected to continue to ramp up. We're watching the intensity, still thunderstorm development around the core of that storm as we look at it on radar. Fox Weather's Robert Ray. He's in Cross City, Florida. We've been checking in with him. We'll get to him in just a minute or two. But you're looking here at Tampa, Florida. And Hillsborough Bay has already spilt over into the roads, through the communities, as inundation has happened across so many neighborhoods, through the streets. Cars have been sitting in water already. We've been checking in with Brandy Campbell, who's there in Tampa, Florida. You know, unfortunately, power has continued to go out. We've seen power surges. We've seen the aquamarine and the teal flash up across the sky. Over 350,000 customers are in the dark across Florida, and a lot of that is centered in and around Tampa right now. Pinellas County for a while was leading the state with a number of customers in the dark. Lightning flashes. We're in a bit of a lull right now in Tampa in between bands, but you know, the wind direction still shifting to the southwest, and what you're seeing here truly is not the worst of the storm surge that is still to come. So make sure that you are tuned in to Fox Weather. We're going to continue to bring you those impacts as we go through. Now, we spoke earlier with Ian Oliver, who's out there in St. Pete Beach. And now that shift in wind, I mean, gosh, it's just been incredible to watch your shot over the last couple of minutes. That's lightning behind you. At first, I thought maybe a power flash, and we could still be seeing those. And, you know, there's so many hazards.
On the westbound side went out. This whole block, all the streetlights on the westbound side went out, and you see the stress on all the palm trees. So yes, this is a scenario where it feels like, oh, the storm has passed us by to the north. It hasn't by any stretch of the imagination. This southeastern quadrant was always going to be the most problematic and the most dangerous part of this storm for the Tampa Bay area. And now we're watching that play out in real time as the water continues to rise here on St. Pete Beach.
Ian, can you show us again that car submerged? Where is that in relation where you are? I mean, when you're looking down, is that the surge, or are we looking at floodwaters too at this point? Because rain has certainly been more consistent over the last 2 or 3 hours.
Yeah. This is most certainly the storms that are coming in, so much so that we're working our way back down here. Again, we had to go to the wire here. But you look at what's going on here. Look at the spread. It's funneled a little bit down the street.
Those are the scenes in St. Pete Beach where you have cars completely flooded with storm surge floodwaters that have taken over the communities there on the coast. Let's go to Cross City, Florida now, where Fox Weather's Robert Ray is standing by. Robert, the core of this still a good 80, 90 miles or so from landfall, but we're expecting for you to where you're standing to at least feel the wrath of that eye wall in the next, I'd say, almost hour and a half, 2 hours.
Yeah, it's progressing. It's amping up, and we're beginning to get a little bit more consistent with how heavy the wind gusts are and the rain coming in here into Cross City, which is about 20 miles from the Gulf of Mexico. The closest town, Steinhatchee, which is expected to get maybe upwards to 20 feet of storm surge. And boy, do I hope everyone evacuated from that area. And of course, we know Perry just is to the north. They are going to take it on the chin as well. Jay, this is a big, big round of rain coming in right now. And some of the wind gusts coming in. And I don't know if you can see it, if it's registering on camera, but it's beginning to really counter twist into this region. And this is probably the heaviest effects that we have felt at this point. We still have power here, and that is a good thing. And the last time I checked, we were approaching nearly 400,000 customers without power here in Florida. States of emergencies in play, not only in Florida, but up in Georgia, as Helene is really just speeding up the Gulf and will likely make landfall, as you said, in the next 2 to 3 hours, and then it's just going to speed right up into the state of Georgia. There is just so much going on right now, and unfortunately the storm is hitting in the dark of night, which makes everything even more dangerous, especially in a region like this, the Nature Coast, the Big Bend, which is full of trees. Thankfully, it is not heavily populated. Nonetheless, my God, there are thousands of people that live here and have families and roots, and everything means so much to these folks, all the way from Tallahassee into where we are at right now. And so this is just the beginning of what is going to be a long next several hours and into the night. And it will be very difficult for first responders to be able to know where some of the most catastrophic impacts are because of the darkness. Jane?
No, Robert, that's an absolutely great point. I mean, the thing is hunkering down in safety. Don't go venturing out because you don't know what you're going to encounter, and that is going to be a big danger for emergency crews, almost having to wait until the light of day come tomorrow morning to see the full scope of this. Robert Ray in Cross City, Florida, we're going to continue to follow your live shot and bring you updates as they come in here. Let's get down to Tampa, Florida, where they're already feeling the impacts of Helene. This is a look at Fort Myers Beach, where we already have surge beginning to push its way in through the peak of this storm. We're watching very closely places like Clearwater Beach as well up the coast, where surge is already closing in on 5 feet. This is as tide is continuing to climb and that wind direction is continuing to shift. Several communities underwater. Power is out across Florida. We're going to keep you updated here on Fox Weather. Of course, we're your Hurricane HQ. We have continued coverage of Helene all night long. A reminder, you can stream us free anytime at foxweather.tv. You can get the Fox Weather app on your phone, follow along with alerts, and keep it plugged in here on Fox Weather. look at Tampa, Florida right now, where we have water that is spilling over onto the roads. Storm surge is pushing in, as is the tide, as we're seeing now high tide as we approach going into the overnight hours. Midnight, that's going to be a pretty dicey hour for us. We have our Fox Weather correspondent, Brandy Campbell, standing by, riding out the storm in Tampa. Brandy, as you stand there, I mean, have you noticed the water's been there for a couple of hours at this point when we've been watching your shot. Is it continuing to come up?
Yeah, Jane, the water is definitely going up. I would say about 2.5, maybe 3 hours ago, we were not seeing the flooding in this area that we're seeing right now. It was further down Bayshore Boulevard, which for the most part, I'm hearing the police officers tell me is mostly flooded. So it is coming up very slowly. And so the reason we moved to where we are is so we can make sure we can get across this bridge to our hotel and we're not stuck because of the flooding. Obviously, it's not just the flooding, it's the wind impact as well. Right now, it's kind of in a lull, but it continues to go up at some points. The police department, they just called in their officers, though. I was just told that. We had an officer that had been here for the entirety, and he said, we have to go. They're calling us in, and they're not going to come back out until it's safe to do so. Now, I have Keith right here. You're in town for a conference.
Yeah, the Tampa Boat Show.
Okay.
We're down at the Tampa Boat Show.
What's your reaction to see this? You said you have experience being in the fire department. So thoughts on this?
It's dangerous downtown. I definitely think the level's too far to be driving around.
Right.
But hopefully it clears up in the morning. We'll be out at the show and clear up, and everybody come out to the boat show.
Not quite what you had thought you would see on your, trip here for a conference, right?
Not at all. We made the best of it.
Okay, all right. Well, thank you for speaking with us. Hopefully you guys are safe and your power stays on, of course. Of course. Now, speaking of power, there's just over 52,000 customers that are out of power just in this county of Hillsborough County. That's another thing to keep in mind. About an hour ago, I saw a transformer blow. Excuse me, guys, the power. I saw a green glow in the sky, so I assume it was. Jane?
Brandy, it is. I mean, power is going out there in Tampa. I mean, just the way that these floodwaters have continued to come in, this is the surge pushing into Tampa Bay. I can't help but notice the sludge, too, that you're standing in. So all of that water pushing in, I mean, it's bringing with it things that you don't want in your backyard.
Yeah, that's right. It's just flowing in. I mean, at this point, I feel like we're one with the bay. You can see the water levels on the street behind me, but it's kind of matching up with the bay along that fence as well.
How have the wind gusts been for you? I mean, we've been watching them clock out, towards St. Pete Beach. We had an 82-mile-per-hour gust there. So those hurricane-force wind gusts, they're at the coast. Where you're standing, have you been feeling some pretty powerful gusts over the last hour or two?
Yeah, no, we definitely have. It's definitely on and off. I've been keeping an eye on some of the signs, some of them shaking a lot. So just trying to keep in mind not to stand behind them because we don't know if they might fly away. So the stop sign's just kind of shaking a bit. And obviously you have the palm trees off in the distance, just giving way a little bit. Obviously it's not the worst that I've seen, but you come outside, it's pretty obvious that we are feeling the impacts from this hurricane, which is amazing because we are so far away from the center of it.
Yeah, it's incredible. We're nearing 5 feet of surge there in Clearwater Beach. Surge has been hovering around 3 to 4 feet there in the Tampa Bay. So Brandy, be safe out there. For now, you have power. We hope it stays on, and we're going to follow you and continue to check in as the night goes on. I'll look at some of the conditions out of Tallahassee, Florida, as they await really the brunt of this storm. And you can see the floodwaters already. The Panhandle has been dealing with flooding rains over the last several hours. And unfortunately, the worst is still to come for Florida's capital city. That's where we find Fox Weather meteorologist Kiana Lewis. Kiana, how are things looking out there for you right now? I mean, the dark of night, we've been talking about this, ramping up. That's what the impacts are going to be when we look down the road the next few hours.
Absolutely. I mean, Jane, just a couple of minutes ago, we didn't have this rain that we have now. So it just speaks to the ebb and flow of how those outer bands are coming through. And then we may catch a bit of a break, and then they come through with a heavier downpour. And that's what we're getting now. thankfully, the winds, while we'll have these gusts up to sometimes 25 near 30 miles per hour, they're not as significant as they are expected to be heading into later tonight. So that's certainly something that I think a lot of folks are getting or taking advantage of at this hour. We know that going into the 9, 10, 11 o'clock hour, that's all going to change as we head closer and closer towards that landfall. I noticed that we had a little bit of a shift to the east. That makes all of the difference in terms of the center of the storm. So that's something that, of course, we're going to continue to watch as well. But in terms of the rain, those outer bands, the leading edge of Helene, certainly is making itself known here in Tallahassee. And I think a lot of folks are heeding to that. If you look at the streets, if you look behind me, notice that it almost is a ghost town at this point in time. So a lot of folks are definitely hunkering down as the sun has gone ahead and set, and they're setting themselves up for later tonight. I talked about last hour, if you didn't get that last little bit of juice in with your devices, now is the time to do so while we still have power. Notice all of the Spanish mulch trees behind me are still lit up at this hour. It is expected to change going through tonight. So we are expecting a lot of these opportunities for power outages with these trees maybe tumbling down on power lines as we head into the later half of tonight in that landfall time frame. And of course, if you don't have your device charged up or if you're not prepared to get the alert from our Fox Weather app, you're setting yourself up for failure. So you want to make sure you're prepared for that while we still have that power tonight. As I mentioned, at this point in time, I think the one thing that's really making itself present here in Tallahassee is the heavy rain. Going into the next, say, hour or two, I wouldn't be surprised if those winds start picking up as quickly as the rain has been doing so far this evening, Jane.
Of course, Kiana, we're watching those bands too close for comfort in Tallahassee, and you're right. Power up those phones. And I think, too, going into tonight, make sure as you're going off to sleep, because you rest as one does, know where that safe place is inside your home in the case of those warnings. You don't want to be anywhere near windows, power not only going out, but trees falling. That's a big concern up in near Tallahassee. So we're going to be following you all night. Kiana Lewis, thank you for the report there in Tallahassee. All right, let's get you a big picture here to Tampa. We've been following along with the floodwaters and the surge in the Tampa Bay, out on St. Pete, Clearwater. I mean, this storm has so many impacts. There's phase 1, which is what we're going through right now along the coast, awaiting that landfall, which is going to come in about the next 2 to 3 hours as we look ahead into the early overnight time frame. But we're also watching these outer bands, and phase 2 is as Helene makes landfall and then races up through Georgia and into the Carolinas. We already had one confirmed tornado that was up in North Carolina. In fact, it's ongoing right now. That warning runs for another just under 10 minutes. That goes for Cassville County and Rockingham County. So you talk about how far-reaching those impacts are. That's almost on the Virginia border. We also have several tornado warnings in place right now across southeast Georgia and into the low country of South Carolina. But Brian, what jumps off the map to me here too are these flood warnings. We have numerous flood warnings, including flood warnings in Atlanta, biggest metro hub in the southeast, which is really going to take the brunt of Helene post landfall.
Well, so we have multiple things causing flooding, right? One is just continuous rain, and Atlanta, it's a very hilly place. There are big rivers that come through Atlanta. The Chattahoochee River comes through Atlanta, where all the rain that falls in the mountains goes into the Chattahoochee River and then comes down through the city. And there is a history there of major flooding in Atlanta, in northeast Atlanta, where they have neighborhoods all around that river. So that's a threat. And as you said, look at all the flood warnings with these outer bands here all around Atlanta. And let's talk for a moment, Jane, about the mountainous areas up there around Asheville, North Carolina. Because as you know, the National Weather Service has issued this flash flood threat all the way up there in this incredible corridor, by the way. I don't think I've ever seen such a long corridor view. Level 4. I mean, even if it was just the level 3, we would say that was incredible. Right. But so we have two parts of this. One is down in the Panama City to Perry on up into central Georgia. And that's a big deal because they're also going to have hurricane force winds beyond hurricane force, up over 100 miles an hour, right? But then you go farther north. So Asheville, the flood of record in Asheville is in 1916 from 2 hurricanes. One, a Category 4 that came up from the Gulf, and the other was a Category 2 that came from the Carolina coast less than 2 weeks later. So it was a bang thing where they had tremendous rain from one and then tremendous rain from the other, and so they added on top of one another. Well, what did we have this week?
The predecessor rain event.
And
nearly a foot of rain.
Nearly a foot of rain. Everything is saturated there, and now to have this on top of it. So the folks there at the National Weather Service, Greenville, South Carolina, are talking about this in terms of the great 1916 flood in Asheville. That if you look at the pictures of that, you'll see all of Asheville, downtown Asheville was flooded. People were lost in that, and we just hope that everybody in all those mountainous areas are monitoring all the alerts for their area, because you can get swamped with alerts.
Yes,
right?
absolutely.
But this is a really critical situation.
Knowing how to get to high ground, listening to officials. We have a couple evacuation orders already up for the Blue Ridge in North Carolina. So that's phase 2. Phase 1 is still ongoing.
Well, phase 2 has got to the tonight, right?
Right.
And that's sort of phase 3. This is really a multi-phase disaster all in sequence here. And you know, the folks in the mountains, it seems like a whole different storm, but it's really all related to the same thing. Yeah.
And that flooding is ongoing right now, but so is the storm surge flooding. Like over down in Fort Myers and Naples right now, we're seeing record storm surge in some areas, record storm surge up towards Clearwater Beach as well. So we're following every facet of dangerous Hurricane Helene. It is a Category 4 hurricane barreling towards the Big Bend. We have continuing coverage all night long here on Fox Weather, your Hurricane HQ. Stream us anytime for free at foxweather.tv.
Are you kidding me? Okay, hold on. All right, here we go. Good evening, everybody. How y'all doing? Hey, Anthony, fun. Sorry I couldn't catch you. I did some dinner, but I hope you were entertained. We are doing a live coverage for the Cat 4 hurricane. Get ready to make landfall in the next couple of hours. So that's what I'm doing. This is not gonna be a good one. So hope you guys are out of the way. Panhandle of Florida is gonna get it first, and then Atlanta, Georgia. ATL is going to get some Hurricane Williams. I don't think they're ready for that. So we'll wait for the commercial to go on.
Back here on Fox Weather, we have team coverage covering the swath of Hurricane Helene. Our Fox Weather's Robert Ray in Cross City, Florida. You're live for us, Robert, bracing for the impact of this storm. Nothing like ever before felt in the Big Bend.
No, absolutely correct, Jade. And we are really, as we've been talking about, starting to see these bands amp up here. And, you know, we're starting to see some little particles of debris fly around us, the glasses and the helmet, as I'm illuminated by the Fox Weather Beast here in Cross City, town of about 1,700 here on the Big Bend. And some of the fury from Helene is beginning to trek into the Nature Coast right now. We are about 20 miles, everyone, from the Gulf of Mexico. Closest town, Steinhatchee, which could get anywhere from 10 to 20 feet of storm surge. As the National Hurricane Center has said, that is unsurvivable. And that is why we are not there, indeed.
Wow.
But this area loaded with old Spanish live oaks and pine trees. Pine trees, very soft wood and very shallow roots that could easily break down. We still have power here, though about 400,000 customers, maybe even more at this point, are out of it here in the state of Florida. I expect
In the state of Florida.
to dissipate here shortly as these bands continue to come in. Helene racing up the Gulf of Mexico right now at about 25 miles an hour. Forward speed and
Oh, it's going faster.
And thus here we are on the Nature Coast in the Big Bend, awaiting that imminent landfall in the next couple of hours, maybe even a little earlier, based upon how all this goes. And that wobble, will it wobble again a little bit more to the east? We'll just have to continue to watch. Jane?
Wobble, wobble.
And, you know, seeing how
Shaky,
your
shaky.
shot has evolved over the last hours, you brace for those powerful winds, hoping the power stays on for as long as you can get it. But here it comes.
Here
and
it
ready to keep you
comes.
up to date.
I like it. I like
At
it.
last look, we're still looking
like
at the
that
core
kick.
of this, that eye wall, sitting a good 80 miles from the coast, 60 miles perhaps from where your location is in Cross City. What's your biggest concern when you go through the next couple of hours, taking the brunt of that? You've been through so many of these storms. Is it the downed trees? Is it the wind? Is it the rain? What is it?
It's purely wind. My biggest concern is the wind, as another band is continuing
Okay,
to push
so
in.
what-
The problem is these wind gusts continue to come in, and the more sustained they get, and then with the gusts, we're going to start to see structures unravel, and trees begin to break and snap, and potential for roofs to fall, and gas station, those hovering areas underneath where you pump your gas, some of them may go. That's a major issue. A vehicle going right by us, clearly on purpose. Thank you very much. I hope you're safe, sir. But that is my biggest concern right now is the wind factor. We're out of the surge in this area, and we made that calculated decision earlier this morning. We did not want to be on the coast. Just in the dark of night, water is already deadly. Then you add a Category 4 storm coming in when it's pitch black. It's a recipe for absolute hell on earth, and we expect that to still continue here in the next few hours. Perry, up where Mike Seidel is, also going to take it right in the chin. In fact, they could get some of the toughest conditions of this storm. Jake?
Robert, you're right. The darkness adding another dangerous layer to this story that is already incredibly dangerous in its own right. Robert Ray, we're going to continue to follow your live shot. You know, things have certainly continued to go downhill as that heavy rain, wind is picking up. You know, in Cross City, from where you are in Steinhatchee, just last year we had a dahlia that came in, was weakening on approach, wasn't as powerful as what we're going to see. But this area too dealt with Debbie. From your travels today, how are people feeling? Are they still recovering from those storms?
Oh, yes, most definitely. And believe me, there was an exasperation when we were talking to people yesterday and today, almost like you've got to be kidding me. This is happening again. In the course of 1 year, they've just been hammered in this area. And now this historic storm about to make landfall, an imminent landfall. The feeling that we got from the people we talked to is, oh my gosh, we have to pick up and evacuate yet again and remove all of our life and try to be safe while at it, and hope to God and pray that our homes are still intact when we come back. So this is very difficult for this region. And I just feel for them. Godspeed to everyone. And if there's anyone who's stayed on that coastline, Oh, wow. Everybody, say your prayers, even if you're religious or not.
Robert, absolutely. I mean, the power of this is still coming in the next couple of hours. We've already seen a lot of damage down in the Tampa Bay area. Fort Myers right now is flooded. Naples is flooded because of the surge coming in. We had Clearwater Beach, record surge, now over 5 feet. When Idalia came in, took a similar parallel, track to the storm. We didn't even get a surge of that magnitude. So it just tells you, just every storm is different. We saw up to 8 feet of surge in some areas in and around the Big Bend, Glasgow around, but we're talking up to 20 feet. I mean, that's something that is unsurvivable, and just the scope of that.
It's remarkable. 20 feet is an unspeakable number to come in. That is over rooftops. And then when it gets pushed in with the outward push, it gets even worse. And you're mentioning Fort Myers. When we started our coverage of Hurricane Debbie, which at the time when it was passing past Fort Myers, it was Tropical Storm Debbie, the people there continued to discuss the fact that they were getting surge even on times where there wasn't tropical depressions or storms. And they were wondering what exactly is happening. Well, some of that is sea level rise, and that is an issue down there. And it is something that I think needs to be addressed, especially in Southwest Florida, as it's the last thing they need, right? They just went through Ian 2 years ago, that historic storm, and now this, Jane.
It's incredible. They try the beach replenishment projects and they try to put forth, the best protective measures. But when you get a storm like Helene, it really is just a speed bump. In Cross City, Florida, Robert Ray, thank you for the report. We're going to keep following. Be safe. And we're just awaiting the worst of this still to come. Let's go up to Perry, Florida, where Mike Seidel is standing by. Look at this, though, coming into Tampa, where floodwaters, people taking their bikes out into the surge. This is what you're looking at right now. This is surge coming in from the Tampa Bay, the Hillsborough Bay. In fact, on Bayshore Boulevard, they've closed things down. Emergency crews are trying to get to a safe place themselves. Mike Seidel standing by in Perry, Florida for us. Mike, what's the latest where you are? Mike, you with us?
Yes, I am. I'm sorry. There's a lot going on out here, and I'm trying to keep my head together here as we await the arrival, the landfall of Hurricane Helene, a Cat 4, not far from the coast. We were at Keaton Beach yesterday. That's about 20 miles south of here as the crow flies, and we are about 60 miles and change from the edge of the eye, or the edge of the eye wall of the eye. So give it about 2.5 hours or so, and we'll be in the calm. But before that, we've got to go through the eye wall, and it's nasty. That's where those winds are gusting over 100, maybe 110 miles an hour, and that's what's going to cause the damage, the trees, knocking down power, maybe some trees on structures like houses. That's why we urge you on a night like today, a night like tonight, is just stay home and stay put. Don't drive around. The other issue is you can go down a road and a tree falls and then you can't get out and you're trapped out on a road in the middle of nowhere and nobody can come and get you. So this is not the kind of storm you want to be out in. Even if it was daylight, we would be right here at the hotel. You can see on the radar that eye wall coming towards us here in Taylor County, where there is a mandatory evacuation. That kicked in yesterday, so everybody's been evacuated. I hear something blowing, it's a piece of aluminum, corrugated aluminum blowing across the road. Very small piece of corrugated aluminum. I mentioned the peak wind gust so far, I last checked, at the Perry Airport about a mile down the road, Jane, 38 miles an hour. So we have a long way to go, and it's going to go downhill very quickly now over the next 2 to 2.5 hours. Then, based on the radar and the movement, we'll be in the eye, the calm, and it'll just basically turn on a dime in a matter of a minute. The winds will just really drop off consistently. Now, it's a major hurricane, so I was in one major hurricane with the eye. That was Floyd in '99 in North Carolina. And the winds went calm, the temperature went up 10 degrees, and the birds were flying around. We'll see what kind of effects we get this time when we get into the eye here in the next 2.5 to 3 hours here in Perry, Florida.
Mike, we're just getting information from the hurricane hunters. They're dropping dropsondes into the northeast quadrant of the eye wall, and we're getting surface readings of 125 to 135 mile per hour winds. Just above the surface, 150. So you talk about where you're positioned and how you're going to be taking the brunt of that. I mean, this is out over the open Gulf where it's still strengthening, it's intensifying, it's a Cat 4 hurricane. But that even makes me take pause knowing that we're getting surface readings over 130 miles per hour.
Yeah, we're going to be in the north and northeast quadrant, so we're going to be in that. We're also under that tornado watch here. There's several tornado watches up, including Orlando, Jacksonville, where we are in Florida, and then all the way up into the Carolinas. So a lot to take in, and we'll keep you updated, Jane.
All right, Mike Seidel there in Perry. Keep it here on Fox Weather. We've got And we're back here on Fox Weather, your Hurricane HQ, with continuing coverage of major Hurricane Helene, a Category 4. The new advisory just coming in, the update at 9 p.m. for the National Hurricane Center. And we have 140 mile per hour winds. Big update there when you talk intensification. Pressure drop down to 941. You're looking out in Tampa where floodwaters, the surge has already overtaken so many communities. This is a powerful storm, multifaceted, and it is going to bring a lot of damage and destruction, unfortunately. I want to get you the latest on that update. Here we are coming in at the top of the hour, and look at the intensity. The winds increasing to 140 miles an hour. Hurricane hunters, Air Force Reserve, they're still flying through the storm. They've been dropping their instruments into the storm themselves. We've been picking up winds at the surface around 125 to 130 miles an hour. So this is a powerful, powerful storm, and it is going to bring a lot of dangerous consequences. Let's get out to Perry, Florida right now, where storm specialist Mike Seidel is standing by. Mike, in a pretty decent band right now. As that rain and wind has picked up, what are you experiencing?
Well, we've got the horizontal rain, and it's sheets of rain. And now I'm hearing the alarm from my phone, which I'm listening to programming at Fox, go off. I don't know what's going on. I don't know if it's a flash flood warning or a tornado warning. You'll have to check and get back to me because I can't look at my phone right now. But we're now getting in to the fringes of the worst of Hurricane Helene, as Jane just mentioned. Category 4, 140 mile an hour maximum sustained winds. And we're going to get gusts here easily 120 miles an hour. We've got great protection from the hotel here. The wind's coming in here from the east northeast across the street, but the closest trees downwind are probably about 100 yards away. So at this point, I'm fairly comfortable standing here as far as things flying around. It's just a big open field out there, so the wind has really nothing to be stopped by. As far as the rainfall totals, we hadn't had much rain until now. It was all east of us, Apalachicola, Panama City. 5 to 7 to 8 inches of rain. There have been flash flood warnings in that area most of today. We have not been under a flash flood warning. We're under a flash flood watch, or a flood watch rather, until tomorrow morning. This is moving very fast, upwards of close to 25 miles an hour. So once we get in the eye and then on the other side, the back side is not nearly as strong or wet as the front side. And I think it's going to be like we saw Debbie and Steenhatchee. The rain is going to shut down, and that's going to be pretty much it for the night. Except the damage will have been done because those wind gusts are going to knock out the power. It'll be interesting, Jane, to see how long we keep power here in Perry. But they lost power in Debbie for a couple of days, but in Vidalia last August, it was out for 7, 8, 9 days. A lot of trees came down. We're talking today with the mayor saying, well, those trees are down, but there's still other trees that were partially damaged. And with all this rain and even stronger winds by far versus Vidalia, there's going to be a lot of power outages. And the power crews, as I talked to the mayor earlier at the airport, the power crews are going to be coming through the area after the storm blows by. So they're staging west of here, and they will come in after the storm goes by and set up at the airport. And we may actually be out there tomorrow, I'm not sure, but literally hundreds of crews. They're expecting 1,000 power crews in Perry alone to get the power back on. Jane?
Mike, we're doing some digging. The alarm that went off on your phone is an extreme wind warning for the eye wall of Hurricane Helene. So expecting those conditions to become dangerous, life-threatening over the next couple of hours. Really, truly, forget that. I mean, we're talking those impacts likely imminent when we're looking ahead towards, the next 30, 45 minutes. We could see that. I mean, the eye wall measuring what we're seeing right now, a good 40 miles from where you're standing.
Yeah, it has gone down the hill very quickly in the past 30 minutes. Apologize for folks walking into the shot, but it's a definite downhill now, right into the eye wall and then into the eye. I think we're going to be in the eye by about 11:30 or so Eastern, if my math is right, about 2.5 hours. But in those 2.5 hours, we get those 100-mile-plus wind gusts, and that really is the crux here. The winds knocking out the power. They can handle the rain, flash flooding. It does flood some areas, low-lying areas, but it goes away. It's going to be certainly the wind that's going to be the big story here in the power outages.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking a Category 4 hurricane, intensity up to 140 miles an hour, and at the surface, measurements reading in that northeast quadrant of that eye wall, which is going to be coming ashore, likely in and around the Big Bend, in where you are in Perry, measuring upwards of 130 miles an hour. So this is the worst case scenario and something that residents in Perry have never experienced before. I mean, you've covered a lot of hurricanes. This is rare for the Big Bend to get a landfalling Category 4 hurricane, and one that is continuing to intensify.
Well, it's really rare anywhere, let alone the Big Bend, to get a Cat 4, Cat 5. We've only had 4 Cat 5s make landfall in the U.S. Going back to the Labor Day hurricane. So it is rare to get a landfalling Cat 4. And so it is. We're in uncharted territory, especially with the surge. Hurricane Center is saying 15 to 20 feet. Tide is not a matter here because the tidal range is 7 or 8 inches. And we'll see how that all matches up as we get the analysis post-storm. But a 15 to 20 foot surge would be higher than they had from Vidalia when the surge ranges in this area in the Big Bend were 7 to 12 feet. And you remember, on top of that surge, you've got these huge, massive, destructive waves that are going to just batter everything in sight. So that's the other issue, and that's why we're not near the coast. We're 20 miles inland.
Yeah, positioning yourself in a safe zone when that surge is in the forecast. And given how it's performed already down the coast in places like Clearwater Beach, record surge over 5 feet already, and the worst is still to come there with that wind shift over the next couple of hours and high tide. Mike Seidel in Perry, Florida, our storm specialist, thank you for the update. We're going to continue to check in with you. We have our exclusive Fox Weather Storm Trackers bringing you the latest as it happens. Brandon Kopic joins me now on the phone. Brandon, you yourself in Perry, Florida, where we just spoke to Mike. How's your experience been? I know you were up there near Tallahassee earlier today, really just finding the best position for yourself to capture the wrath of this.
Yeah, so right now, Corey, Vince, and I are in Perry, and I apologize to the team in advance. We actually were the vehicles that passed behind Seidel with our amber lights on, kind of photobombed his shot. But yeah, we're trying to strategically place ourselves here in Perry in a good area to kind of watch where it's going to go in, because we're staying on this highway here, 1998 over here. That way we can keep an eye on it as to whether or not there's going to be any substantial shifts that we may need to redirect for.
Yeah, what are you most concerned with where you're looking to track? I mean, there's so many different facets to this, right? There's obviously the severe weather risk, that tornado threat, which you have so much experience in chasing, but it's a whole different ballgame when we're up here in North Florida, Georgia, the Carolinas. The tree density makes everything that much more dangerous, let alone with the Category 4 hurricane.
Yeah, it's definitely getting more and more intense. And like you guys said, with that extreme wind warning, I mean, this is going to be honestly unprecedented for the area. It's like you had Michael that was all the way over on Mexico Beach. The strongest one lately around here has been Idalia. So we were here for that, and that was a decaying Category 3. And this is a continually intensifying Category 4 hurricane right now. So really, safety is key right now. We're going to be watching this closely to see if we need to continue on with the tornado threat. But honestly, I think we're going to end up getting blocked into these areas just with the absolutely insane amount of down trees and power lines that we won't be able to clear all by ourselves.
Oh, that's one of the bigger dangers here too, with the amount of trees that could come down blocking roads. That makes it more difficult for emergency personnel. Oftentimes you as storm chasers, storm trackers, you're first on the scene to some emergent situations. Talk about how you've equipped you and your team, you, Corey, Vince, to handle something like that over the next, 12 hours or more going into the light of day.
Well, as always, before these types of events, we make sure to prep our equipment. We test our equipment because we carry chainsaws. I've got 2 with me. Corey's got 1. Vince has got 1. We're all staying within a couple mile close proximity. That way we can have traffic with each other on analog radios because likely cell service at times will go down. So we're trying to make sure that we can still have direct communication with each other. And obviously the priority for us is always helping people. We want to be out here and do what we can to support the emergency responders, and we are not out here to be a liability. We're here to supplement and support those that need the help, and that's the end game for us. So as soon as stuff goes down and we can safely help clear roadways and things like that, that's exactly what we're going to do.
All right, Brandon Kopic, thanks for the insights. Stay safe out there. Give our best to Corey and Vince, and we'll keep checking in as the night goes on in Perry, Florida. All right, let's continue here in the Big Bend and down the coast. This is Tampa, where we've been looking at that surge pushing in, inundating communities on Bayshore Boulevard in and around the entire Tampa Bay. St. Pete Beach, Ian Oliver has been standing by watching as that water has gotten far too close inland. We have our Robert Ray standing by in Cross City, Florida. Robert, National Weather Service alert going off. Extreme wind warning for Perry, Florida. This is for the eye wall of Helene, which could bring winds over 130 miles an hour to your location.
Yeah, and well, that's where Mike Seidel is to the north right now in Perry, 20 or so, 30 miles. This Cross City and the ebb and flow here continues, though it's been pretty sustained as far as wind gusts here and rain in the past, I'd say 2 hours. It just depends on the moment. But the thing shocked that we still have power right now, considering the fact that there are 600,000 customers without power in the state of Florida, and that number continues to go up. Now, I've got this protective gear on. For anyone watching and wondering, there are little particles that fly around off of trees and other structures, and they can easily hit you in the eye. So I'm taking the biggest precautions possible as these wind gusts are now picking up, and you can hear the trees roaring. The Fox Weather Beast illuminating me right now. Lloyd Alford and Jared Maloney tucked deep into the truck over there so they can bring clean visuals to us right now as the storm is being furious. Helene moving in the Gulf of Mexico, 140 mile an hour sustained winds. It's a Cat 4, just got increased as you guys have been talking about. And so here we go, right? In the next 2 hours, we have an imminent landfall coming. Where that is exactly, probably close to Perry, but we will have the effects here. And again, amazing that we still have power here in Cross City. About 1,700 residents that live in this town about 20 miles from the Gulf of Mexico. The closest town, Steinhatchee, taking in anywhere between 10 to 20 feet of storm surge. As the National Hurricane Center says, that is potentially unsurvivable. Jane?
Yeah, I mean, the scope of this storm is something that will be remembered for years. Robert Ray in Cross City, Florida, will continue to check in with you. Thanks for the report. Be safe.
Thank you.
Listen to the wind, and this here is a look at Sarasota, Florida, as that surge pushes in from the Gulf of Mexico. The worst of this being felt as we speak in the dark of night down in Sarasota, Fort Myers, Naples, and in Tampa Bay. We're going to continue to bring you live coverage and the latest all night long on powerful Hurricane Helene. Keep it here. Fox Weather is your Hurricane HQ. We'll be tracking the storm 24/7. You can stream us free anytime at foxweather.tv. Fox Weather with the Fox Weather Alert surge, shattering records in Clearwater Beach and St. Petersburg. This is a look at Gulfport, Florida right now. It sits on the peninsula there, just between St. Pete Beach and Pinellas County there. And look at this. This is several feet of surge that has inundated this community. You can clearly see this is a road. You have the tree lines that are now filled with feet of water that is bobbing. That is quite literally the ocean that has replaced dry land. And this is exactly why evacuation orders are in place, and you need to be hunkering down in a safe place. I want to bring in Fox Weather exclusive storm tracker Mark Sudduth. Mark, you're joining me with really just the scope and the scale of this storm. You position cameras to get that clear picture of what's happening where no man should be. And to see how it's been playing out, what's your take?
Oh, my take is this is exactly what they are for. The only downside is it's dark and we're not going to be able to see very much. But some of these cameras do have the night vision, and we're able to see the surge coming in, especially in Cedar Key. We have our weather stations that are set up that are getting impressive wind readings and pressure readings. Just an incredible effort by the whole team to bring this to the Fox Weather viewers and to the internet as a whole. You know, we want to see these hurricanes studied as best we can, and we're helping to do that.
Absolutely. I mean, there's so much care that goes into where you're placing these cameras. For this particular storm with Helene, did you place cameras given the path of this, or are a lot of these cameras already stationed from previous storms?
Oh, for this particular situation, I think a dozen or so. These were specifically set up just for Helene, strategic different locations from the Courtney Campbell Causeway and Bayshore down there in Tampa, all the way up to St. Mark's, where we have multiple cameras. And speaking of St. Mark's, that could get a catastrophic storm surge up there. And we have a wind sensor up there. But yes, all of these were placed specifically for the hurricane.
Yeah, Mark, we're looking at some of your cameras right now, and it really is striking to me. I mean, I feel like the idea of storm surge is already such a hard concept to really wrap your head around. But this is the real truth. This is what puts it into perspective of why you need to be away from the coast in scenarios and in storms like this. I mean, the waves are breaking onshore and then pushing. I mean, there's the seawall right there, and you have waves that are lapping up over the shores and over the road.
Yeah, exactly. And it's going to just get higher and higher, especially up in the Big Bend area, potentially 20 feet. And then on top of that, that wave action, and you're going to start getting structures that are bulldozed and tremendous amounts of vegetative debris. And unfortunately, a bunch of animals are going to get swept up into that. And this is really going to be painful for people to see tomorrow at first light. A generational hurricane here for the Big Bend area of Florida. And then, as you all have been talking about so well, it's going to move into the southeast from there.
You really talk about the magnitude, generational hurricane for the Big Bend of Florida. You've been through a number of big storms. Ian was one that for Florida is, of course, remembered, and we're still picking up the pieces from the surge there in Fort Myers Beach. Up to 20 feet of surge in the Big Bend. When you look at Helene on a broad scale, for what you've seen in your experiences, what are you most concerned with? Which impact? Is it the surge? Is it the wind? Because we already have extreme wind warnings up for places like Perry, Florida, that could see winds over 130 miles an hour.
Yeah, so the biggest concern is the storm surge, because you just can't survive that kind of force of water and all the different stuff that's in it. Now that it's nighttime, that makes it even more horrifying. And we can't predict exactly where those peak values are going to happen. And so that's the number one concern. And then the next thing is the threat of incredible flooding in parts of western North Carolina and the vicinity of the upstate South Carolina, where the high risk is for flooding. A high risk of flash flooding could get the exact same attention as a high risk of severe weather, because, you know, rain is an impact. And we're getting ready to see that Friday and Saturday in parts of the southeast.
Yeah, there's so many different phases of this storm. Powerful Hurricane Helene. Mark, thank you for setting up these cameras, for bringing them to us here on Fox Weather, and we appreciate all your hard work. Be safe. We'll continue to check in with you as the night goes on. Exclusive storm tracker Mark Sudduth in the field there. Well, let's get you back out to just the elements. This here, Tallahassee, Florida. And you can see all of the heavy rain that has come down throughout the day. We've had flood warnings up for the Panhandle, but the worst is still coming. In Tampa right now, we have storm surge that is pushing through the bay. That wind shift is happening as we speak. This all as the tide is beginning to come in. We've got our full team coverage out in the field. Let's go out there now to Tampa, where we have our Fox Weather's Brandy Campbell standing by.
Right now, we're getting a pretty strong wind gust. I know you guys could probably hear this. Is probably one of the strongest I felt since we've been standing here. Last time you guys saw us, we were on Bayshore Boulevard, where they are seeing a lot of flooding. The police recommended that we leave because they were getting out of the area, so we went ahead, we abided by that. We got back on the other side of, or basically the downtown area where we had to cross over the bridge, so we're safe and making sure we can get to our hotel at the end of the night. But we're still seeing flooding on the other side of the Hillsborough River. So I'm surrounded by water. We're close to the Riverwalk. This is an area, again, also known to flood. The river just beyond where I'm standing. So we're one with the river at this point. That is 3 feet above high tide at this point, Jane.
Yeah, Brandy, it's incredible to see how much surge has already pushed its way into the bay, and things are going to continue to get worse. Be safe, Brandy. We're going to be following along with your shot. Power's still on, though, as those street lights are still up. Over 300,000 customers without power already in Florida, and that number continues to climb. Fox Weather, we're at Hurricane HQ. We'll be having live coverage all night long here with Hurricane Helene. Look at Fort Myers, Florida, where the surge has come in and flooded communities overnight. This is going to continue to worsen. Stream us anytime free at foxweather.tv. We'll keep you up to date with the latest on Hurricane Helene.
Oh, man. All right, hold on. Give me a second. Yes, we are praying for the people of Florida. All right, here we go.
Florida's Gulf Coast battered from Hurricane Helene as it pushes ashore. We're still awaiting landfall. We're still a good hour away, potentially, but that eye wall is too close for comfort. We have extreme wind warnings up in Perry, Florida, in the Big Bend. And in the Big Bend is where we find our Fox Weather's Robert Ray. Robert, you're in Cross City, Florida. Here in Weather Command, we are doing some digging on your location, about 25 miles, give or take, from that eye wall, which is open to the south. But interestingly, you were in Cedar Key earlier today, or earlier, and that's where we've seen a near 3-foot storm surge rise in the last 2 hours, and we're 2 feet away from the record from Medallia of 6.9. So it's already beginning there on the coast in the Big Bend.
Yeah. Yeah, and just beginning, right, Jane? Just beginning. Cedar Key, Steinhatchee, all those places that are going to likely see potentially historic storm surge coming in. And here inland, about 20 miles, we have these outer bands that continue to flow in this area with wind gusts that kick up like right now, and the rain, and it is the dark of night. And I said this, 20 minutes ago? Shocked that we still have power here in this particular area. I have to imagine it will go away soon, and that is not a good thing. And I heard Mark Sutton talking about the dangers of a storm coming into the dark of night, especially when you have a Cat 4 with 140 mile an hour sustained winds coming in and debris that you can't see and particles. That's the thing. Little tiny particles off of all the trees in this area and even off of structures that may come off. And that's why it's super important for us to protect ourselves right now in this, regardless of the wind gusts that we are getting, which, you know, at this point, we have been fairly lucky with the wind gusts here in this part of the Big Bend. But, you know, this region, for people that are not familiar, is quite rural. There are thousands of people that live here, but there is not a big metropolis per se. And so the town we're in, about 1,700 people. Perry, which is 20, 30 miles to the north of where we're at, the northwest, there have a heavier population where Mike Seidel is. And the potential for that eastern eye wall, the most dangerous side to come in. Nonetheless, this is moving so fast. And when it gets even closer to landfall, we are really going to feel all of the furious impacts, the temperament of Hurricane Helene, which has just ravaged places like Fort Myers Beach, Clearwater Beach, parts of Tampa, and now in the Big Bend. And the concern as it moves up into Florida after the landfall, into the state of Georgia, what will happen in the metropolis of Atlanta, my home, where my family is, where my loved ones live. Huge trees up there, just like here on the Big Bend. And if they see tropical storm wind gusts and maybe even hurricane force wind gusts, major issues to the infrastructure and the power. Huge problem right now. The last time I checked, it was about 600,000 customers without power in the state of Florida. I have to think that has grown since I looked about 15 minutes ago. A tremendous historical scenario right now. In the dark of night here in the Big Bend of Florida. Jay?
Robert, Helene, far-reaching. You're right. You speak of the damages that are still to come in places like Atlanta, Georgia, up in the mountains of the Carolinas. I mean, that's through the overnight and on into tomorrow. But where you're standing, I just did a quick math, about 15,000 customers in the Big Bend alone without power right now. Nowhere near the number of power outages that we've had further down to the south, which has just been the outer bands, right? You're going to be taking on the eye wall of this. So it's truly, I feel, only a matter of time before that power goes out, trees come down, and that's when traversing through this rural yet area with yet communities call home. I mean, that's what really makes you take pause.
It does, and also the residents here that have gone through Hurricane Idalia last year, 1 year ago, and then Debbie, which we were in Perry for that landfall, Cat 1, and those winds were ferocious. And to think what is on the way right now is just scary. Lloyd, follow me for a second. I just want to take a look. I'm trying to look over there across the street. There's a strip mall over there. I'm trying to see if power is still on, and it is indeed. But to your point, Jane, it's all going to go away soon, unless by some stroke of miracle we don't take it as hard as we're going to. And that may be, right, with these wobbles. But Perry is certainly going to be in the mix. And now these winds are beginning to kick up pretty hard here. This is probably some of the most intense impacts that we have felt. Just going to get worse, I think. James?
No, you're absolutely. You speak of the people who've been through Idalia. They went through Debbie earlier this year. I just want to briefly get your take on the differences. I mean, Idalia was a weakening, powerful storm on approach to the Big Bend. This is the complete opposite scenario. When we're looking at Helene, this storm is intensifying. Looking at radar right now, Robert, the amount of lightning on the northern eye wall is astounding.
That's the scary part. And that could spin up tornadoes, too. And you don't know where those tornadoes are. They're rain wrapped, right? That is likely going to happen somewhere, if not happening, as we speak. This is just super dangerous right now. And I have to say, I've seen vehicles driving around. I can't tell whether or not they are officials or just, gawkers. And if they are gawkers, I hope these people get the heck off the road soon, because we are positioned in a spot where we have a huge brick structure behind us. Where Lloyd is shooting me right now is flanked by the Weather Beast, which is illuminating me, and then my rental vehicle to my right, to your left. And so we're safe. But other than that, if you're out there on these roads, power lines and trees and potentially structures beginning to deteriorate, that is not a good thing. I hope these people get off the roads, any of these cars that we're seeing. And we've had a few cars come by. We had a guy run behind us. It's just like, come on, people. This is no joke. This is life and death kind of stuff.
It truly is. When you speak of a storm of this magnitude in Helene, we already have communities on the coast there, places like Sunset Beach, where 911 calls have been suspended. I mean, where you are,
yeah.
I mean, I can't imagine what that must be like for residents. I mean, safety comes first, and you have 911, emergency personnel are saying, we're not putting ourselves in danger for what the worst of this could bring in the next several hours.
And they should not. They should not. We won't know exactly what has happened here in the Big Bend until the light comes up. And we're 8 hours from there, maybe 9, depending. We won't know. And by that time, the system is moving up through Georgia and Atlanta Metro. I gotta say, I know I'm standing here in the Big Bend, but I'm so concerned with what's going to happen up in the Atlanta Metro. For anyone that's not familiar, we're talking about huge pine trees, big loblolly and other types of pine trees that sit on hilly terrains, and flash flooding can occur. And here we go, a huge wind gust coming in here. Whoa, something just hit me right in the lip. That's why I have these glasses on, to breathe, and you can't see it at night. I cannot explain enough how dangerous this is. And as soon as we're done with this, I'm going to pop to where Lloyd is, tucked deeply into the Ford Expedition, shooting me to keep these pictures clean and clear. What a job these guys are doing, and all the other crews of these elements right now. And the first responders who are ready to go as soon as they can, and it is safe. Jane?
Robert, be safe out there. Those gusts, they're coming in. This is just the worst of what's still to come as we go through the next hour. Robert Ray in Cross City, Florida. Let's get down to Tampa, where we have Fox Weather's Brandy Campbell standing by. Brandy, that water has been inundating Bayshore Boulevard, several communities for hours now. What's the latest where you stand? We have already seen record surge in places like Clearwater Beach and St. Petersburg.
We're just seeing the Hillsborough River, which is just beyond where I'm standing, just flowing into the streets. So we've crossed the river. Before we were by Bayshore Boulevard, and now we're across the river where our hotel is to make sure we can get there at the end of the night. But we're still seeing more of that flooding happen. So the river just beyond, and it's basically just even into this road. And we have seen cars driving through this. You can see the traffic cones at this point just knocked over. There's even a rim that's just right here on the road. So people kind of losing some things trying to speed through this water, making sure that they can get through. So the flooding, that's a big concern. National Weather Service here out of Tampa Bay tweeting out on or posting to X that if you live along the coast here and you choose to stay, it's now, or if you chose to stay, it is now too late to leave. I mean, because we're seeing moments like this. And I would expect also where we were earlier along Bayshore Boulevard, that flooding is only getting worse for those residents. We met some of them and they were anticipating, you know, when we get into these later hours, that the situation could be worse for them, especially for the residents whose homes are close to that waterfront. So it's not just the flooding, but it's also the wind gusts that we're experiencing. We got one coming in at this moment. So you have things like the stop signs off in the distance right there. If we could pan to the left of me, you can see they're just kind of shaking right there. So if you are and you happen to be outside, kind of gotta keep your eyes open and make sure that nothing's going flying, especially those stop signs. If anything, we are seeing a lot of the palm fronds, the dead ones, they have manicured. This wind has manicured the trees, if anything, Jane.
Brandy, at my last look, there were about 70,000 customers without power in Hillsborough County alone. Neighboring Pinellas, we're in the hundreds of thousands, and that's what's just going to continue to climb. I see there is power on behind you, but do you see anywhere around? Have you seen the power flashes?
I actually have. When we were over there by Bayshore Boulevard, I saw what appeared to be maybe a transformer blowing off in the distance. I can see that green glow in the sky. I haven't seen it a lot, but for the most part in downtown, it looks like the power is still on for folks, so that's good news. But that could change as we go into, you know, the later hours of tonight. But right now, I will note I'm hearing some of those emergency sirens, so there's probably some response going on. But the police told me about an hour and a half ago that they were all getting called in because of the wind speeds going higher, that they needed to come in and take shelter. You know, they obviously advising other people to do the same because we're getting these strong wind gusts pushing us around out here.
Yeah, Brandy, unfortunately, several towns and communities have suspended their 911 services because of the power of Helene so far, given the dark of night. Be safe. We're going to continue to check in with you as the night goes on, but it's incredible as you stand there in the surge from the Hillsborough Bay and the Hillsborough River there in Tampa. Brandy Campbell for us live in Tampa, Florida. Let's get you to the latest on what we know with this storm. It is a powerful Category 4 hurricane winds, up to 140 miles an hour. It is moving quickly off to the northeast at about, 24 miles an hour. The alert system you see is lit up. Yes, that is one aspect of this storm that we are keeping our eyes on here, especially behind the scenes. Tornado warnings are up. That tornado watch, by the way, has been expanded to 8 o'clock in the morning across parts of Georgia and South Carolina. Have your Fox Weather app on your phone, charged up, ready to go. You'll get those alerts as they come in, and you too can follow along with this storm on the radar tab and watch us free. We're going to be here all night long with you. Here's the 9 p.m. update coming in from the National Hurricane Center. So, you know, this is give or take about 30 minutes old, 140 mile per hour winds, pressure down to 941, that push up to the northeast. You can see this is infrared satellites. We're looking at the tops of the clouds, and you can see clearly there's a disconnect between where the tops are tilting, bringing that core, which looks well off to the northeast of where the National Hurricane Center is actually tracking the center of that storm. So that's an important piece to that puzzle, right? When you look at the scope of this, though, the eye of this hurricane, it is still sitting a good 40 miles or so from the coast. But you see we have an extreme wind warning up for parts of Perry. This is where we see these intense bands bringing in winds that are easily going to be over 100 miles an hour. Perry getting in on the heavier rain. All of this is spinning into the coast. Here's the core of this, 40 miles from the coast, 40 miles from landfall. That's what you really take away from this when you look at the scope of this storm. Now, if you're down in Tampa, truly, we're in the worst of this right now. We felt the bands earlier this afternoon, brought a lot of wind, rain at times, yes, but it's been the surge that it's been overperforming, really, to my mind, when you see how incredible it has been. Clearwater Beach with a record of 6 feet. St. Petersburg with a record 4.7 right now, and this is the concern. Our wind shift from the southwest has pushed that water into the bay. Clearwater, look how that water has risen. We're going to continue to follow this closely. Stay hunkered down in your safe place. We've got full coverage here on Fox Weather, a full team across every scope of this storm in Florida, in Georgia, in the Carolinas. This is a look at Fort Myers, where they felt the worst of this just a couple of hours ago, maybe lightening up for now, but there's still a lot to come left. Keep it here on Fox Weather, your Hurricane HQ. Here on Fox Weather, tracking Hurricane Helene. Let's head to Town and Country, just northwest of Tampa. That's where our Fox Weather's Ian Oliver is standing by. Ian, storm surge is clearly surrounding you. What's the latest where you are?
Yeah, Jane, it's what we talked about, right? I last joined you, we were on St. Pete Beach. The water was coming up. That surge came in quickly. We had to get out of there. And I told the guys, we're going to have to take the long way back because all the bridges across the bay are closed. So we went north up through Pinellas County. On the way, we saw more power flashes like we saw back in St. Pete Beach. So no question, I know you've been sharing those big numbers of power outages in Pinellas and Hillsborough County. We went north through Pinellas County, up and over the top of the bay, Old Tampa Bay, and that's where we are now. We went through Oldsmar here at the Town and Country. This is Hillsborough Avenue, the Publix at Sheldon and Hillsborough. Look at the amount of water, and it's still coming up, Jane, no question, because the police, Tampa PD, blocked off this intersection because of the floodwaters rising, right? We're not too far away from the northern shores of Old Tampa Bay. But even since we pulled in, we figured, hey, we'll stop. We should tell this part of the story. This water has probably come up another 6-9 inches, maybe a foot since we've been in here. So yeah, we're actually, after we get done talking with you, we're going to pull back around. We're going to have to head north a little bit farther away from the bay and back around. The problem is that what we're seeing, water over the, this is so indicative of what we're seeing in all of the areas that are immediately adjacent to Tampa Bay, some of these communities, all around the edges, the whole perimeter, and then you move out toward the Gulf side. We saw a record surge now, set in Clearwater Beach, and we fear that the water is still coming up. The tide is coming in. So under normal circumstances, the water would be getting higher. But because of what we've seen with this onshore flow, particularly in the southeastern quadrant of this storm, which I'll be completely honest, I did not think would have the punch that it did. We had a gust to 82 miles per hour at Albert Woodard Airport in St. Pete, not far away from us. Yeah, the backside of this storm and this giant wind field that we've been talking about with Hurricane Helene, that's going to be, it was always going to be the most problematic aspect of this for the Tampa Bay area. Yes, there's been wind damage. We've seen probably half a dozen shredded billboards on our adventure over this way, and I mentioned some of those power flashes. The wind has been problematic. The freshwater flooding in spots surely has been problematic, but this surge, I lived here for half a dozen years, covered a bunch of tropical systems. I've never seen anything like this in the Tampa Bay area. And unfortunately, the water's still coming up. So we've got high tide for most spots shortly after midnight. We're going to have to watch this closely because some of these areas, I've been talking with a lot of my friends down here, friends and family, and yeah, folks are dealing with flooding. They're concerned, and the water is still coming up in spots. So this has been a very dangerous situation, and we're not going to be out of it until Helene gets a little bit farther off to the north, the wind direction shifts, and the tide starts coming down. But it's going to take a while, several more hours at the minimum, James.
Ian, just speak to what you're experiencing right now. I mean, we saw you on the beach getting whipped by those winds, the sand, but it seems almost relatively calm where you are right now. That surge, obviously an indicator that we still have that push of water and that wind is present. But what's the feeling as you're outside?
Yeah, it's still gusty. We're not in one of the rain bands right now, so that was giving us a rough time with our equipment. It can be challenging to tell that part of the story. We're in between the rain bands. The wind has backed off some, at least the top end gusts, but it's consistent. And unfortunately, as we were talking about, it doesn't necessarily matter what's happening in this part of Tampa Bay or what's happening over in Hillsborough Bay. I've been watching you guys checking in with Brandy down closer to downtown Tampa. What matters is that wind field out in the Gulf of Mexico and closer to the mouth of Tampa Bay, because that's where all the water is getting pushed in. We're in the spots where the water has nowhere to go but up. And we're seeing the unfortunate results of that with this widespread flooding by what we've seen. And again, because that tide is still coming in and that wind field is so large and still so consistent, I don't think we're done with the rising water just yet. And we've already set records in a number of the gauges across the Tampa Bay area.
I mean, the setting records in Clearwater Beach, St. Petersburg, I mean, that's all happened in the last couple of hours, which has been incredible. You had Idalia, which just last year, was almost a weakening storm, oddly, on approach to the Big Bend. So this is nothing like what they've ever experienced before. When you talk about the intensity of Helene, open in Cedar Key right now, Ian, we're getting surge that's risen nearly 3 feet in the last 2 hours. And we're now just 2 feet away from the record that was set with Idalia at 6.9 feet.
Right. So yeah, that feels like a no-brainer, Jane. You said it. Idalia was a decaying storm on approach to landfall. This one has been intensifying. I've been keeping an eye on the feed. I know you guys were showing some of the recordings from the hurricane hunters, and that's what led to the upgrade of this storm. This is an intensifying storm, ramping up and likely stays that way all the way through landfall, it's a whole different thing. Not to mention the wind field. I don't have the numbers on Idalia, but I know eyeball test that Helene is more like an Irma in size than an Idalia. Much, much larger wind field, pushing a lot more water, and clearly, right, we're seeing the consequences of that.
I mean, how deep is that water, just out of curiosity, that you're standing in? I mean, obviously, kind of dips in the road. It gets a little deeper in spots.
Yeah. I would say into this parking lot, this is the median, a foot easily in the public parking lot, and then into the middle of this intersection, probably that, enough so that you can see how quickly the water is moving. The lights are still on here. Andy doesn't have waiters. Andy's been a big time trooper today. You can see the water getting pushed into the public parking lot. There's a literal current right here. So yeah, deep enough to have that, no question. This is the curve. This is not so deep right here, but into the intersection, yeah, several inches of water. That's Lagoon Street, which I think heads down closer to what would normally be a lagoon as you get into the kind of marshy top of Tampa Bay. So I would imagine the more you walk that way down toward Tampa Bay, the deeper this water must get. I guess we're going to see right here. There's a utility truck. That's FDOT going through. That's the highest point of the road. He's going through the middle right next to the median, probably up halfway up the tires. 8-9 inches of water in the middle right there. And as you said, you go down that road, I'm sure it gets deeper and deeper until you're in Tampa Bay.
Gotcha. And to think that these waters are going to continue to rise, given that we haven't even made it to high tide just yet. Ian, Oliver, there in Town and Country, Florida, thanks for the report. We'll continue to check in as the night goes on. Go ahead.
Jay, we might be.
All right, let's take you out to Atlanta, Georgia right now. We have Caroline Elliott, Fox News multimedia reporter, standing by in Valdosta, where we're seeing the impact of these outer rain bands lift up through South Georgia. Caroline, this is one of the bigger concerns as we get into the overnight hours post landfall with Helene. We're going to watch as those bands rip through your area. Could see hurricane force wind gusts, downed trees, and that tornado risk. What's the latest of what you've been experiencing?
Yeah, Jane, well, right now we're still about 2 hours out from taking a direct hit, but you can already see that wind and rain really picking up in this area. Now, we want to turn on this light just to give you a little bit more visibility on this rain really coming down sideways right now in this area. We know the city of Valdosta has started a citywide curfew in the last hour here, telling everyone to stay inside and shelter in place. City officials are also telling anyone in a mobile home right now that they need to get out and find a safer area to ride out this storm right now, because it's simply not safe to stay there. We do know, of course, overnight, you mentioned some of those concerns already.
Okay. So I'll get ready to close it out. It's if you are in the path of this hurricane, you need to stay together. Don't turn around, don't drown. Looks like Tallahassee's gonna get hit a lot. So I'm gonna go ahead and close it out. Thank y'all for coming out. For those of you who are watching the replay, never mind. Guys, don't forget, do not drink and drive. Do not hang around with knuckleheads to do. And always, 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 always take responsible. Peace out. Deuces. Always out. No.
You go into the settings or the community center, whatever the tab is there, and you gotta add that way. So I should be able to do that. I can probably open up the browser on that side and do that. I should be able to do that. I don't know why you just can't do it here. Why can't I do it here and click on a damn? Yeah, it doesn't make sense why I can't do it here. It's too bad you can't click on a name and add a mod from that. That's quite crappy. All right, Jake, how you doing, Jake668? Good to see you, and Colette there. I can probably once we get someone up on panel here, I can multitask. I can freaking add the mods there. Mm-hmm. Yep, that's my kick. Yeah, we're getting close to the followers there. Needed to be monetized on Kick, right? April Showers brings Nate flowers. How you doing, April Showers? Good to see you. Always speak your mind in this room, which is full of troublemakers. I'm the biggest one. Maybe. Sarah, are you coming to the? Are you available? Are you coming down to Euro Nation's I Love the 90s on Saturday, or are you going to be there? I know you're there at the last one. I wasn't there for the last one. That's right. I missed the last one. You were there for the other one. The one previous to that. Mm-hmm. Good to see you, Beast Mode. Proactive says, "Hey, homie, you stream so well. That's why I followed you. I do see you streaming a lot, but still not affiliated with the partner." Yes.